All
right, we're gonna call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. All right, thank you. All right. First up on our agenda this evening, we have a public hearing. Can I have a motion to open this public hearing?
So move. It's open public hearing on proposed amendments to Richmond Town Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2.13, entitled Department of Health.
Second.
I'll second it. We'll go for our roll call vote. Counselor Madnick.
Yes.
Palmigano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. So we discussed this a little bit last time. For the public's sake, we've made a little bit of changes through the Department of Public Works, kind of aligning with what they're currently operating at. We are now recording. Does council have any questions before we go to the public? Sure, Councilor Palmigano.
Just a couple of clarifying questions, just for the benefit of the community. Just, Aaron, I know that for this, obviously, it is creating 3 superintendent positions. There were 2 before. From a budget implication, could you just clarify for the public how this is already sorted, or what implications it'll have from a budget perspective?
So this was included in our proposed budget that the voters approved on June 3rd. Jim said this is going from 2 superintendents, reassigning duties with 1 superintendent and creating the 3rd who will oversee the transfer station, which we've had a lot of discussions and oversight on. So we believe that having a necessary superintendent over that is critical, especially with the state reporting, as things have changed a lot, not in the last 5 years, certainly in the last 2, very quite a bit. So having someone who's directly responsible for the transfer station, we feel will be able to have efficiency in government in that division.
And just to follow up, so that's the solid waste superintendent, because I know there was a solid waste, there was a maintenance and operations, and then there was a building and grounds. Can you just remind us who the superintendents are for those 3?
Sure. So road work and maintenance is Cody, and his will also now add, he'll be the liaison to the water department. So Cody Caswell, and Robert Doucette is building and grounds.
And the solid waste is?
Will be, once we officially make this approval, we'll come back and appoint Ricky.
Okay. And I know that with the solid waste, there's 2 people there. With the staff that we have now, how's the split allocation? There's 6 on roads or maintenance, and 5 on, what's the split for buildings and ground?
So our public works crew covers a large area and wears many hats. So we don't have a specific split for that. However, there will be 2 dedicated personnel, including the superintendent, as well as the new part-time position that we've just advertised that was also included in the transfer station, so we can minimize our rejected loads at the transfer station. And then we're now a crew of 9 in totality. Gary, correct me? Crew of 9. So discounting Ricky, those will be allocated between roads and building and maintenance.
Okay, so everyone's kind of cross-trained on that.
Everybody's cross, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
pitches in.
So many other council questions or comments? All right, anybody from the public? It is a public hearing. Or anybody online, Kendra? All right, can we have a motion to close our public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All right, we'll for a roll call vote. Counselor Madnick.
Yes.
Palmigano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. Can we have an action on this item now?
Motion to adopt the amendments to the Richmond Town Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2.13, entitled Department of Public Works.
I'll second it. Seeing no further council discussion. Oh, sure, go ahead.
Just, I would just ask that whoever's going to do the final draft to wordsmith this a little bit. There's some sentences that don't necessarily make sense. There's some spelling issues, so we don't need to make an amendment here, but just whoever's going to finalize it, please do that.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we'll go for our vote. Counselor Madnick.
Yes.
Palmigano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. All right, on to appointments and resignations. We have discussion and consideration for appointment to the Richmond Environmental Hazards and Resiliency Commission. Both terms will be expiring July 30th, 2029.
I'll make a motion to appoint Rosemary Fusco to the Richmond Environmental Hazards and Resiliency Commission, the term expiring July 30th, 2029.
Second.
Assuming you're here. or online?
Ooh, I may not have told her she has to be here in person.
Usually the clerk's office does that when they apply. Okay. I don't know her, so I don't know.
And there was
Usually we
nothing-
do that for like
There was
well-known.
nothing attached.
It was attached under the discussion and consideration of appointment, like it was linked as number one, not A. That was probably clerk space when you send it over.
Well, I'll rescind my motion.
Thank you, I
and
appreciate
We
that.
can talk to her and have her come back for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. But I have been speaking with her. I've just never met her in person.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Before we go on to the next motion, is Brianna here? Awesome. So would you like to do a motion for that one?
Yes, please. Motion to appoint Brianna Giglietti to the Richmond Environmental Hazards and Resiliency Commission with term expiring July 30th, 2029.
Second.
All right. Welcome to the party. Do you have anything you want to share with us? Sometimes we just invite candidates to, I know it can be, we catch you off guard too, so we have your information here, so. We
Yeah,
can make
I worked for DEM for 9 years. I have a degree in environmental economics. I'm a wildland firefighter,
Awesome.
type 2, and this is something I saw and jumped on because I think I could help make a difference.
Definitely, I think,
Live in Rockville, but I've lived in Chariho my whole life.
awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think you'll be a great fit. We do have our motion, our second. Any council discussion?
Yeah, just I want to add, we don't have a quorum yet, so we cannot hold meetings until we do have a quorum. So if you know anyone else that is interested, we need at least 3 members. Yourself and Ms. Fusco will end up being 2, but one more person will be able to stand up to commission for the first time and get going.
Thank you. We'll go for a vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. Thank you again. Welcome to the
Welcome.
party. All right, discussion and consideration of a request of Bella Noka to be appointed to the Affordable Housing Commission with a term expiring May 31st, 2029. Is she online? I don't see her in person. So we will do a motion to file this one till the next meeting as well. All right, motion to file till our next meeting.
Second, do I need to vote on it? No.
Yeah, we should.
Second.
I think. I don't think we
Okay,
did.
that's fine. Second.
All right, we'll go for a roll call vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. All right, on to number 3, discussion and consideration of a resignation of Jenny Ants as grant manager. We have action on this.
Motion to accept the resignation of Jenny Hance as a grant manager.
I'll second it. Any council discussion?
Thank you
Alright.
for her time. I know it was short, but thank you for her time and effort.
Definitely. All right, we'll go for our vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. All right. Next we have another resignation of Lauren Souza as deputy town clerk. Can we have an action here?
Motion to accept the resignation of Lauren Souza as deputy town clerk.
I'll second it. Any council discussion?
Yeah, but thanks.
Yes, with
Thanks and
thanks.
regret. Yep.
We'll go for our vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. All right, we got our consent agenda. Anybody have anything we need to pull?
Yes.
All right, what do we got?
I think Jim's going to be with me on this 1A and B.
1A and B? Are you,
Oh, no, he's not. No, it's just me, 1A and B, to abstain.
okay, to abstain?
1 second. I need to find the page because I didn't write the page number down. Or which item it is. I got the page number, not the item.
Okay,
1 moment. Gotta be. It's F3. Approval of the appropriation and payment of bills.
oh, okay.
So I don't think I'll get an answer today.
May not, but we will see. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve 2A through F, 4 and 5.
Second.
All right, we'll go for a roll call vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. I'll make a motion to approve the town council minutes of June 16th and July 21st.
Second.
All right, we have council discussion on that? Or I think Aaron has something
You
to
just have
add?
to reaffirm a vote. I apologize, because we're re-voting on June 16th, so that would do that. Because we never took a vote on what item specifically in June 16th.
Do you want me to rephrase the motion?
As long as Kendra of that item.
So it was from the June 16th meeting. There was a motion that I believe Dan had made but wasn't voted on, and then there was, I believe, an amendment to that motion
Mhm.
that was voted on, so that initial amendment was never, I'm sorry, the initial vote, motion was never voted on.
Okay. So do you need us to revote today on that? Would that fit with the open meeting? Because we're only here to discuss, I don't really know which one that was. It was hazard resiliency, I believe, from our discussions, but I thought that if we approve the minutes, we're kind of reaffirming our action.
Maybe solicitor can buy us some time.
Looks like maybe page, bottom page 2 and page 3.
Yes.
Want us to come back to this?
It looks like, who was the,
Addition,
yeah,
it's just, no vote was taken to, a motion was made by Dan, seconded by Jim to adopt the proposed addition to the town code of ordinance establishing the Environmental Hazard Resiliency Commission. No vote was taken.
yeah, we made an amendment. We voted on that, but we didn't
Did we,
finish the second one.
Right.
did we listen to the minutes and see if it was a friendly motion or a formal amendment? Because I know we flipped between the two.
I mean, I can go back.
No, it was an amendment that was.
Okay.
not voted on. The amendment, then the question wasn't. We
So,
moved on. So you need to vote to approve, to include the Environmental Hazard Resiliency Commission in the code of ordinance. So that will obviously come.
so what are you looking for? A motion to approve the,
We just need,
Environmental.
no, the motion was made. We just need formal action on approving it.
All right, let's.
Oh,
No
okay.
motion was taken on that item.
Yes.
Okay, so
So Mark was not, oh, Mark was here.
Yeah, I saw it,
Yeah,
I saw it. I thought it was something we did on July 21st, approving earlier minutes. I didn't
we
realize-
approved June 16th minutes, but when we went back to check, that motion was not approved of June 16th. So we were kind of reaffirming both. We can put it back on if you want clarity.
it's up to you guys. I thought we were just approving the minutes as amended, but if they're not in there, we can do that as well. We can approve the minutes as amended. Yeah, I think if we need to approve a whole nother,
Can they just make that motion? Can they approve that?
It's
motion?
listed as reconfirming the vote from July 26th.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's listed, it's on your agenda.
Okay.
tonight.
so as far as so I'll withdraw my motion and a more, make sure that's written down. There's no vote in that motion. Now I'm gonna be on edge about that the whole meeting. We'll make a motion to approve the June 16th, 2026 meeting minutes with reconfirming the vote from the July 21st agenda.
No.
Because we want to we have it, we want it.
You just need to
There
vote
again.
on that item and then vote on the minutes. Because that's what was is being
All
reconfirmed.
right. So the motion that was not
Is to
voted on was
establish
the
that by
motion to
ordinance.
adopt the proposed addition to Richmond Town Code ordinances establishing the Environmental Hazard and Resiliency Commission. It looks like we actually had the same amount of members there that day, so we can just revote on that.
Mhm.
All right, so here's the revote on establishing the Richmond Environmental Hazard Resiliency Commission. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes,
and Wilcox, yes. That's what I was gonna call you about before the meeting, Kendra. I was like, I wanna make sure we do, no, it's fine, it's fine. I knew that I was gonna, not be clear if we were just reaffirming or if we really could or not.
And then just. approving those
So now we can approve your
minutes.
minutes, or our minutes. I'll approve the minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 16th
Second.
meeting and the July 21st.
Second.
All right, we'll for a roll call vote,
I
Counselor.
can't do both. I can only do one.
You want us to split it up or you just want to recuse from both?
Sure, I'll abstain.
Or abstain from both? All right, Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Abstain.
And Wilcox, yes. All right, we had an item pulled, number 3. What question did you have? I know our finance director is not here this evening, but maybe we can get it
It's
answered.
okay. Gary might be able to answer.
All
that
right.
one. Okay, so if we go to page 89 of the PDF, but if you don't have the PDF open, it would be page 8 of the town payments, expenses charges. And we've been talking a lot about paving, and I noticed that it looks like in July, we purchased like $2,500 of cold patch. That doesn't seem like a lot of money to me. Is that something we're gonna continue to purchase throughout the year, or is that just a one-time purchase?
Gary, are you able to answer that question this evening since you're here? Do you mind coming to the podium just because you're in the back and I want the microphone to catch you appropriately?
So Gary and I just actually talked about that today.
Oh,
We
good.
get coal patch from a new vendor and we purchase it by load. So
And we usually get 10 yards at a time, 10 ton, and it's like 1,200 bucks and change. And actually, we were getting it at Richmond, which was 160 a ton, and we're getting it from Edelman up in Connecticut now for 125 a ton. But it's a good, but the way we go through it, it's like, it'll add up quick. But we'll run out and we try not to go out like scabbing places. It's more or less for the pothole. But some places lately, we've been just using that to try to fix up some of these places. That's just bad, just putting skim coats on. But I can't keep going through that like that. I mean, we're only into the first month of the budget. And it's like, and I've already gone through 3 loads. So 1,203 loads already. Still just into August. So got a fine line too.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of it around town. I was just curious.
But the materials, great material, real great material. And you take the compactor with it, it's not gonna be smooth like a road, but it's covering a lot of area.
That's all. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve consent item number 3.
Second.
All right, we'll go for a roll call vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Mashano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. All right, on to public forum. I'll grab my notes here. The purpose of public forum is to give members of the public an opportunity to address the town council about items not on the agenda. We ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. You'll have 1 opportunity to address the council during public forum. This is out of courtesy of others who wish to speak to ensure we have equal time for all. There'll be a timer that'll go off when your 3 minutes are up, so you know to finish. If you need more time, we welcome you to submit your comments in writing to the town clerk to be included as a part of the record in the communications section of the agenda. All comments should be directed to the president and not any other person present. All right, do we have anybody for public forum? Sure, go ahead, Ms. Sheehan. Do state your name for the record. And we have somebody online, thank you.
Ellen Sheehan, Richmond. I'm here just to say out loud the letter that came from Nancy Howard concerning the state of Rhode Island's General Assembly density housing mandates and asking you to join in with the resolution. I know once before we talked about it and you said you didn't want to sign on to it because you didn't want to get any bills. But to me, the idea that they're just taking away any control that we have over what happens in the town, it doesn't seem reasonable. And when people move here and think that they have a 2-acre lot, 3-acre lot, and now maybe the land will be divided in half. That lot, you sell it, now it's going to be 3 lots, 4 lots. So it's kind of a bait and switch. And for us, I know the US government just passed a bill to give money to the towns to build pretty much public housing, of which the government is paying a good part, but people will not be paying the full rent. So the town's government, the Rhode Island says is supposed to have 10% of our population getting some kind of government aid, which is unachievable because if you add 10% more people, then you have a new number. So now it's not 10% anymore. So it's a way to, they want us scrunched in together and have green space. Now, I grew up in North Providence. North Providence was woods. and I grew up, now they probably don't have to do anything for the state mandate. They also have city water and sewer. So if we end up putting in these affordable housing units and we now have to pay for a sewer system, which we can't afford. If you go for anything, don't let them put in the sewers, because there are only 8,100 people here. We're gonna bring in people who don't pay for themselves. And the rental unit, the builders, I forget the number of the law, but they only pay a very small amount of taxes. So this is not any money maker for us. This is a money loser for us. I'd much rather do what the people in Shannick are doing. They're building affordable housing,
Mhm.
not government housing. And I bet the rents or the purchase price will be much more manageable. I'd rather see us fight back.
Yeah, thank you.
We did, Helen, we did pass a resolution expressing those concerns. We just didn't sign on to the form that everyone else has signed on.
Right.
So,
Thank you for the
Flushed
clarification on
out,
that.
they're not recognizing you, that's.
well, I don't care whether they recognize us or not. We've passed a resolution taking a position on this, so I just want to make sure that's clear.
It was the clarification, just for clarification, I think she was referencing the lawsuit. You know, because she did recognize in her, when she was speaking, that we did sign the resolution, but we didn't go on to the lawsuit because we want to spend the cash, the taxpayer dollars, or kind of sign a blank check over to somebody who's gonna field a lawsuit for us. That was my opinion on it, but we're gonna move on to the next item, because this is the public forum.
Sorry.
We did discuss it in the last meeting.
Did all the towns get notified that you passed that resolution?
Our town clerk is indicating yes. All right, we said we have somebody online? When you get permissions, please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Chris Kona, Richmond, Rhode Island. My host has disabled my ability to open my video, but I can still talk.
You can, we hear you.
Okay. So I wanted to highlight that the Hopkinton Town Council is reviewing the policies that they have for the new community center that's over by Crandall Field. And this is a community center that we, the town of Richmond, had gone together with Hopkinton. We contributed grant money that we had towards the construction of that facility and have an MOU with Hopkinton to share the use of the facility with Hopkinton when we go through that. The policies that Hopkinton is pursuing to try to manage who's going to use that facility and who isn't is excessively constrictive and would contribute a lot of use that the community center could otherwise do. This is a community center that we all paid for. We all have grant money for it. And so I think we should try to open up the use as much as possible. Our community center in Richmond has great policies for how we incorporate what uses folks can use for that. It's used by a bunch of the town. I think it would be great to open up another space. So it gives our folks more places that they can use to go spread out. But I think it's important that we work with Hopkinton to make sure that the policies that are in place for that kind of thing aren't restricting the use. In particular, political activities. They seem to be pushing against anything that they consider to be a political activity, which I think regardless of the party or regardless of where they're coming at it, whether it's the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or the League of Women Voters or anyone else who's trying to use the facility to help meet with the community, should be permitted access to be able to use that facility. It's paid for by the taxpayers. It provides the community access to have those discussions, so we can talk as a community about how we want to approach some of these things. And I think it's critical for the health of a good community. So I would invite this town council to consider how you might work with the Hopkinton Town Council to make sure that those policies are shaped and that the town of Hopkinton doesn't block access to our community center. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. All right. Do we have anybody else for a public forum? Anybody else online?
I have a fun fact, not really public forum, but a fun fact.
Read lately.
So today, August 19th in 1747, Richmond was founded. So happy,
Birthday.
someone do the math. 300 and something.
Almost.
1787.
Right there. Probably.
279. 279 years, 1747. So fun fact. Happy birthday, Richmond.
Thank you. On to reports.
So I just have two announcements that's not on. I want to make an announcement that Shannock Mill was awarded the Rhode Island Commerce funding for Richmond. That was, we discussed a few months back, and so I'm very excited to see that a project in Richmond was chosen for the Shannock Mill project for the Rhode Island Commerce sort of grant. So that was some exciting news. Some other news is tomorrow night is our last food truck event, which also has a showing of Aladdin. It begins at 5:30 p.m. with live music and then the showing at dusk. So if you can't make it out, hopefully you can make it out. It's going to be beautiful weather. It's on the front town lawn, and the Recreation Commission has done a great job with that. So just wanted to make those two notes. My first item is authorization to award our meter data migration for our water system. This is a very long time coming. Our software is quite antiquated and requires staff of both the finance department as well as our vendor to go out sometimes on multiple reads. So this will be a conversion that we need so we can have more efficient reads, which would prevent hopefully a labor reduction in our next contract when we go back out. So this will be kind of a two-part. This is the first part of it. We'll be coming back later with upgrade to our billing software. And this was put out to bid, and we do have the funding in our capital project. So I'm requesting authorization to Ferguson Waterworks for the meter data migration.
Awesome. Can we have an action here?
Motion to award the bid for the water meter data migration to Ferguson Waterworks not to exceed $12,500.
I'll second it. Any council questions or sure, go ahead, Council Palmashano.
Yeah, Erin, you said what was the lowest bid?
I believe it was 8,400, but it required about $1,000 yearly add-on.
How much?
About $1,000.
1,000?
Yep, 1,009, I believe. And what this is a one-time fee.
Okay, so over time, it would have added up the life cycle of this software. Because it would have been like, it would have taken 3 years for it to reach the price of this actual vendor. But you feel that this vendor is the better choice because of.
And they currently have our meters, so they know. So I do believe that there'd be more staff time if we went with the other vendor because they're not familiar with our system.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Or we'll go for a vote. Councilor Mannick,
Yes.
Palmashano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
and Wilcox, yes. All right. On to your next one.
Next is to award generator maintenance. We have 8 units in the town, and we found out luckily that when one of them was under contract, under warranty, that we didn't have a current annual maintenance. And so to get somebody before we found out it was under maintenance, the labor fees were quite extensive. So we went out to bid. This is the second time we've gone out to bid on this for lengthy items. And I want to remind folks that our bids come from all of New England, not just Washington County. So it's a request to award annual maintenance. So this is for 2 maintenance checks with all the stuff like a car, I guess, as well as a fixed price should they have to come out on emergency repairs. And that's much needed, certainly for our generators that back up our water system. So I'm requesting the annual maintenance be awarded to F&M generators, and we're going to split it up into 2 maintenance line items this year. And as we look at our water system and our grant funding, we're going to look at breaking it out, those systems, those generators into a water maintenance line item when we come back next year in our budget recommendations.
So
Alright.
I'll make a motion then.
Yep.
To award the generator maintenance service contract to FM generators in the annual amount of $4,775 for fiscal year 2026 through 27, 2027 and 28, and 2028 and 2029 in accordance with the submitted bid proposal.
Second.
Our motion, our second. Any council questions or discussion? All right, we'll go for a vote. Councilor Mannick,
Yes.
Palmashano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
and Wilcox, yes. We have item C.
So our next item is very exciting. We were notified that we are eligible for 25,000 in Learn 365 funds, which is about double to what we received last program year. And the focus of this funding was for camp and after school related activities. It also not only supports math, but it supports literacy components. So when we received the funding, we had to respond a notice of intent right away before we could get this in front of council. So we didn't lose the opportunity. We met Recreation Director Robin Woodmansee and our Community Service Director Connor King met with Sharon Martin to talk about Principal Richmond Elementary, what we could do. And the Richmond summer program under Robin's guidance this year was very well received. We have accolades, and so she feels very comfortable in running a after-school program as another addition to what we're doing besides the summer and the April vacation. This would focus the grant funds on hiring a specialist in both math and literature, and that the grant funding would support, and then we would request additional funding, additional permissions to hire camp counselors to make sure we're in the 1 to 10 camp counselor ratio, and that would be supported by camper fees. Ms. Martin did send out a survey to Richmond parents, and we had overwhelmingly about 68 parents respond that they'd be very much so interested in having a after school program from 3 to 5 days. We believe to make sure that this is self-sustaining, that if you enroll in this, it would be 5 days and that fee would be based on 5 days. It wouldn't be, I want 2 days and 3 days. And we would add some enrichment activities that they do now. So it would be kind of a continuation of the school day. For those that require the additional specialists, they would receive that, but it would also be an opportunity for childcare that is lacking in our community. So because this is such a tight turnaround, I asked Robin to put together some funding on what we would establish the fees for. I said base it on 50 because, 65, 68 people were interested, but whether they commit. So I'm asking for 1, authorization for us to submit the grant application for that program, and 2, authorization for us to hire the necessary after school counselors to establish that camp fee that would support that.
Awesome. Do we have an action on this item?
Yeah, I'll motion to authorize the town administrator to submit for the Learn 365 grant application for 25,000 to establish and operate the Richmond Recreation After School Program at Richmond Elementary School beginning this fall. I'm
Awesome.
just gonna do one.
Second.
Do separate.
All right. Any comments or questions on that? All right, we'll go for a roll call vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
and Wilcox, yes. Go ahead with your second motion.
Yeah, I will motion to authorize the recreation director to hire the necessary after-school counselors contingent upon program enrollment and available grant and program funding to implement the Richmond Recreation After-School Program.
Second.
We'll go for a roll call vote.
Discussion.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Aaron, I know I mentioned this to you when this came, you let us know about this. Have you clarified the licensing question?
Yes, we believe that because it's going to be specialists from the school district as an extension of the day, that we don't believe we need any other childcare license.
Okay, all right. Glad you did that. Thank you.
All right, and we'll go for a vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
and Wilcox, yes. Chief's reports next. He's running a little late because he's actually at the Charahoe School Committee meeting with some SRO stuff. So we will go on to the next item until he's available to give us his report. It's a good one, so stay tuned. The town planners report's up next. Go ahead, Talia.
Good evening, Council. Polly Gillette, Town Planner. I am seeking an extension from the Town Council in relation to putting together special use permit criteria. In March of this past year, the council made a motion to have this be put on this particular agenda. Planning board has been very busy over the past couple of months. I assigned them homework. Some of the homework didn't get returned to me until July. They've also been facilitating different amendments to the zoning ordinance with adaptive remediation and the whole GFI property. So we haven't had a ton of time in which to actually work on this criteria, but I have set forth a plan of attack for the planning board, which I did at the last meeting. which is that on the 24th, September 24th, we're going to have basically a consensus of the planning board on, okay, do you think that this use can be permitted, prohibited, permitted with a special use permit? Then a subsequent meeting, which would be October 13th. That's when they would be devising criteria. And then October 27th is the date that I want them to actually render the advisory opinion to the town council. So they vote on that package that would go to you. So I just wanted to kind of give you an update on where these processes stand and ask if you'd be willing to grant that extension for this work.
Do we have any questions or an action on this one?
I'm looking at you.
Me?
I'm sure we all have questions. yeah.
I'll make a
Well-
motion to allow the planning board an extension through say October 31st, 2026 to conclude their review and provide an advisory opinion on the proposed amendments to whatever that chapter is, 18.16.010.
Second.
We got our motion, we have our second. Do we have council discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I reviewed the work that the planning board did, and it's very robust. I think it is more than fair to grant the extension. I also did what I said I was going to do and promised, which I went through all the special use permits as well. And yeah, I'm gonna toot my own horn. It took me a long time. It came up with 17 pages of objective and specific criteria along with the planning board. They did a fantastic job with what I've seen, and I think it's the right thing to give them enough time to do this. It was a huge effort, so I appreciate everyone's effort on this. And I know that it's taken a couple of years, but we're doing it the right way, and I really appreciate that.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I agree. I appreciate the timeline showing that it will get done and when. So that was.
Yeah. I didn't want to leave the meeting on earlier this month without having established specific timeline
Mhm.
for this work to take place, because I didn't want it to then kind of float along with the wind
Yeah.
going forward. So I was like, we're gonna have a specific date when this is going to happen. I had initially suggested a slightly shorter time frame, but the planning board was like, we need a little bit more time.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, then we'll do it from this point.
Yeah. They're a board of volunteers. Let's give them the time
This
they
is,
need.
this is very true.
Go ahead, Councilor Napolitano.
Yeah, and you said this already, but it can't be overstated, the work that the planning board did
Mhm.
to move the GFI piece forward at the Shannick Village. So that was a huge amount of work, supplemental to everything else we've been asking. So I think it's fair for us to see that request from you and grant it.
Thank you.
So let's go for our roll call vote. Councilor Mendick,
Yes.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes,
and Wilcox, yes.
thanks very
And
much.
thank you so much. That was it for your report. Next we have Public Works Director report, Mr. Gary Robar. Thank you for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so we have your memo, but I'm sure you want to share a little bit with the public what this is about and what we're gonna do.
It's what was proposed to pave and what we figured we could do with the money that we had left over. And try to put it to the best spots that we can at least get something done. And we've come up with both ends of New London, Old Mountain Road, from Carolina to the overlay that we put down when the flood came in 2010. And then from the bottom over the river, we're gonna go from the end of the overlay out to the Hillsdale. So that'll be one section that's taken care of. And the other, we had money left for was to do with Cherry Lane. So that's the three we got for now.
Mhm. Yeah, and in your memo, you do address KG Ranch. I know that's a hot topic and that's one that's really important. I people often on
I
it.
could get rid
So I
of
don't want to not touch on it. But the cost for that is included in here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's not really conclusive either, because they can't do to step two is done, so it's not even,
Mhm.
it's a lot more to it than people realize.
Yeah,
Madam Chair.
sure, go ahead.
So Gary, I know that you and I haven't talked about this few weeks, maybe a month or two. But I have talked to Aaron a little bit, and I happened to run into Carl Naveros
Yep.
on Saturday, I think, and we were chatting a little bit. You did a really good job putting together the road evaluation report a couple years ago, and one of the things that we have outstanding from that is kind of a long-term plan for how we're going to address the infrastructure needs of the town. I'm not going to make a motion to ask you to do that now, but I think that's something we really need to consider. Because there are a lot of infrastructure needs in the town, and we've been doing it a lot like ad hoc. And I understand like budgetary concerns. We only have a certain amount of money we can put into roads every year. And it really depends on what happens with the school and the rest of revenue and all of that. But I would like to really see some long-term planning on how we're going to actually address the road infrastructure we have. And specifically, just right now, what I'd like to see is some options to try to manage KG Ranch to make it better and improved for the residents that live there now, even though we don't have the money to repave it. I don't want to suggest options because I'm not the subject matter expert, but I'd like to at least the council to hear some options that we could do so that the residents don't have to suffer another winter with the state of that road. And I after this winter, I drove through it, and it had definitely in some areas has gone downhill compared to where it was last year.
I actually discussed this today with Aaron about rearranging some of the ones we've already got done and keeping the list updated. But there's not much I can do on KG without any DOT permit. And that's so lit up. That's all watershed area. I just can't go digging and do anything. I'm trying to put a little the reclaim down to smooth it out. Kyle's been doing that a little bit. But even that I'm afraid to do. I mean, and even clean in front of pipes, vegetation. I'm not touching nothing until we cannot do anything down there till everything gets engineered and DEM approves everything. And I just can't go in there and touch. I can't go start digging that road, do something. I'm trying to be careful what I do now. I mean, besides patching the roads and that, there's a lot of litigation behind this. And it's like, I'm not gonna get till that's straightened out and we get approved. And that's where that all begins.
Understood. But do we have a timeline on the pay report, the consultant, when they're going to be done with it?
I had that. That's been going on for.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing for the public and everybody to understand is that KG Ranch Road requires DOT permitting to do pretty much anything in that area. Pear Engineering and all of their preliminary has recommend raising that road. And there is quite extensive culvert and drainage that needs to happen. And we need DOT wetlands permit. So if we put together, you know, a recommendation besides patching, some millings and doing anything, it's going to require wetlands permitting. And we don't really have a plan. And once we submit that plan, it could be, if we did it now, we're looking at the spring likely before that would be permitted. There's a lot of relationships in there. There's state agency that, you know, from the 95 coming down. We're waiting for the Pear Engineering. I received today, after this was, I think, my third request to see where that stood, a final plan, because we did have preliminary plans on Pear and they said March of 27, but because of the new federal requirements, they have another oversight that's required. So that's what's happening now. So in the spring, they told me in a few weeks they'd have a final design. Well, there's now another hoop, I guess, federally for them to jump through. So we hope to have all the culvert work because of that project designed out, and that will put us in a better position when we're ready to pave. But as Gary indicated, we can't do a lot in that area without a wetlands alteration permit. And so, you know, Cherry does not require that. Old Mountain, I know a lot of it's in better shape, does not require that. So there's no tree work associated with those roads. So that is really the limiting factor on KG. And that is why the amount of money is so strong. It's because it does need quite a lot of infrastructure work. So if, you know, discussions have happened, do we bring it back down to gravel? To bring it, yeah, would it be smoother? We could grade it, we could do all of that, but we still need DEM authorization to permit that because the sublayer is at groundwater level. So we do need permission to do that. So could we speed that up and do that all in-house if we get permitting? That is an option, but it's not, you know, we can't reclaim and pave that road. There's not, we would do that and we would be in the same position in a few years from now.
And I
So
like
let's get our
that.
state rep and our state senator to push to get the permit done so we can do something. I mean, that's why we have them, right? And we can't do something as a town. I mean, Aaron, we talked about this today. That like, I'm really tired of the bureaucracy. I mean, we have DEM that is more interested in trout stocking and prioritizing notice of violations for people that that break their laws against modifying wetlands, and yet we can't regrade a road because there's a wetlands alteration permit that we need. I mean, we got state rep and state senator for this exact reason. So I think we need to go out, we need to come up with a plan, and we need to push them to help us with DM to get this done. If the bureaucracy is the only thing slowing us down, then we need to push through the bureaucracy.
Well,
I don't have
it
a
is
plan to
additionally,
submit to the bureaucracy. That's the problem.
So I'm saying we need to come up with a plan.
I know, well, you're complaining about a bureaucracy doesn't have anything to. It's not the bureaucracy yet. I'm not saying it's not gonna happen, but we need to focus on making a plan to get this done. Do we have to do it in phases because of the money? And the question that I had is the work that Parry's doing now is what?
Is the study of the entire Wood River. And so that it's bigger than KG. It's the entire Wood River from, outside of our city town limits. And so part of that work is they're looking at the culvert and drainage infrastructure for improvements to minimize flooding in that area. So we hope that based on those recommendations, we'll have the engineering recommendations that will eliminate some of that design work that would be required, because we don't have an in-house engineer. So we'd have to go out.
So that's my second question. My second question is, part of the scope of work that the Amber is doing is engineering this road.
On KG Rents, part of the scope
Yes.
of the bid was that D'Amber didn't answer that. Lynch did, and that was the 1 million price. D'Amber just answered.
Narragansett improvements, I
I'm
think.
sorry,
Aaron.
Narragansett improvements. Just answered reclamation and paving of that section. So they omitted the reconstruction, drainage, and engineering of that. The 1.1 that came in was the entire soups and nuts, but unless they.
Without a stipulation of they don't know the stormwater construction either. That's what I'll make it quick. Erin, I know what she was trying to do, and we're trying to get a ballpark figure, just like an overall oversee how close we're gonna be, this is all gonna cost. But by right, the first should be going out for bid for engineering and bidding. Because now you're gonna do the road construction, because at one time you couldn't touch any elevation on KG Ranch Road, but now they want to start raising beds, and that's where they were engineering. But they can't put a bid in until they know what the engineering and DMs are proposing for culverts, drainage. So it's hard for, and that's when they did that, but that's still, and they stipulated in there that they can't give the real, because they don't know what's gotta be built.
all right, so I have a question about the phases that you mentioned. If we were to put KG Ranch into phases, is that even possible because of the fact that they would want us to raise the road? Like, is that an option that we could have?
That's when you got, I don't know what really Pierre's been up to over this, been going on for years and years.
Yeah,
But as of right now, the first thing we have to do is permits and engineering. That'd be your first.
and part of the concern now is that some of these funds are road restore. So there's a timeline of when we can use it. And can you remind me of when we need to use the road restore funds by?
November.
By November. So we're kind of in a crunch for like these funds that we currently have. We would not be able to use them by November because of all the plan we need to make, the engineering we have to do, the wetlands permits we have to get once we're.
Engineering permits, time that's even done.
So we need a plan. And whether that plan is we do it in phases, I actually like that idea if we can. But we do need a more
one thing
solid
at a
plan to
time.
get through it, because I know that years ago, back to the state helping us, there was engineering that they were looking to fund and it got pulled. So I know that they have tried, and I think we need to go ask again and
like-
have representation that'll do so.
Like you said.
But I think I have, Mark wants to go again, I got Jim as well. I'll go Mark and then Jim.
I just, I think Samantha just said what I was thinking, maybe phase one is let's get the engineering done. And then we have a, better idea what the project is. I mean, I understand we probably don't have the money for the engineering right now, but we need to at least, let's get a plan. So going into next year, the next budget cycle, when, we're allocating money to different things, we know what the possibilities are and what the different steps might be at KG Ranch, so we can say, you know, what can we just do engineering? Can we do engineering plus something else? So it's just, I think, because of the cost, we're never gonna have 1,200,000 in any single fiscal year to just use. So we need to figure out how to incrementally do it, if we can. So that was my point. I'm sorry for being.
And that's went from Dennis, just before Dennis McGinley's house, where the newer pavement stops. And that's only to the last house at the end. Before it goes out through Arcadia with no houses on it. That's just to the bowl down past that last house.
This one.
Just that straightaway, yep.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that doesn't.
So it's one part, and we broke that down in two sections, and both are over 1 million. And that's not knowing the real what stormwater is gonna be.
All right, I got Counselor Palmigano here waiting.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think, like what we had to experience with number 4 Richmond Townhouse Road, it's easy to say to all of us, we need to have a plan. What's more helpful is when there's a subgroup working on it. I would recommend that with the administrator, with you, and perhaps Councilor Madnick seems quite passionate about this topic, there could be a subgroup just to even come back at some point with a framework of a plan as we've identified, like we need the engineering report, then we go to this. Also, as we go into next year, from a prioritization perspective, I think KG Ranch, again, we're not going to have, like Councilor Reynolds said, not have all that money available, but that should be highest priority as far as how and what we could do. But it'd be helpful because, we step away from this, we all have our jobs and doing things, unless there's something to circle back to come up with, okay, here's the plan. I would like to see that as a subgroup to just come back at maybe a meeting in October with some kind of proposed plan. Whatever you guys figure out, I'm not going to back anybody into a corner.
Oh, something's gotta be addressed down the road. We gotta start somewhere,
Yeah,
but
just
it's terrible. I mean, it's.
Down for that.
All right.
Sure, go ahead, Erin.
So if I could, so it's really important that we need to ensure that we utilize all of our reimbursements, because we are one of 39 cities and towns that are all vying and using their funding by November of about 7 contractors in the state. So we want to make sure that we have full commitment that this gets done for this year, so we get full reimbursement for our projects, because the state is like, there'll be no extension on non-using the funds, and every amount counts. And so what Gary alluded to is we tried to come up with, so you could see the monetary amount of KG Ranch, so that it's not going unanswered. But Gary and I and Carl met today about what we could do, and maybe we do, put in a wetlands alteration permit to bring it down to gravel of KG, and then we can start with going out to bid to engineer to see what the cost would, and phase that to include in our next budget cycle. But it's really important that there's a few constraints. Is we don't have any more funding in road paving should we select these 2 projects for this year. And then 2, obviously, there's the asphalt company shut down November 15th anyway, regardless, about November 15th through the 30th. So making a plan moving forward, as well as looking into a company that assesses our roads. And a lot of cities and towns have invested in that. Gary and I've met and want to do that. So we're on the MPA, and there's a vendor that assesses those. They have software, they have computers to look and say, oh no, you don't have to shim it this much. We're going out to bid because we don't have those in-house resources, and we don't have the staff to do that. So that's an allocation we're looking at. But there's definitely a plan moving forward for next fiscal year, but there is a restraint in this year. So I just wanted to make that
Those
clear.
are not mutually exclusive. I'm not interrupting anything with the plan for this year. Go for it. You know what needs to be done. That's great. I just, it's helpful when there's actually a tangible plan. You as the town staff are responsible to run the town. We as elected officials are responsible to constituents. So we hear from it just as much as you do, which is why I thought if Councilor Madden could liaise with you, help, it would keep us informed. You keep us informed, just move it forward. It was very helpful with number 4 Richmond Townhouse Road. We all agree we would not have made the progress unless we had that focused group to really drive it forward. So that's all I'm asking. That was just one thing. So I don't think we need a motion for that, but I would allow you to have.
I think we do.
A motion.
I would, just because I don't want to get in charter issues with directing, I want Counselor Madnick to have full reign to make this happen without
All right,
any
I'll-
concerns.
I'll make a motion to
Yeah.
request that Councilor Madnick work with the town administrator and DPW director and any additional staff that they feel are necessary to come up with a stepped plan identifying timelines and any cost required with the list of the priority roads that would be addressed into the 2027 moving forward. Blah. Over. I'm done.
Okay.
That was it.
I'll second it for discussion. But I did thought there was a more specific action for
Yeah, fine tune.
KG Ranch. Like a specific plan, like not just for road next year, but for KG
Yeah,
Ranch.
Cajun Ranch, yeah,
Okay.
but I also have a second part of the discussion, which was on what's in your memo about Pine Hill, but that's
Yeah.
only 300,000. So yes, regarding KG Ranch, I think that's important. A plan for KG
Yeah.
Ranch, I'll amend that.
I feel like you've been voluntold, but also that you agree. How do you feel about this, Councilor Manning?
It's really not up to me. I think it's up to our staff if they even want to work with me, if they decide
Mhm.
that that's something they want me involved. I mean, seriously, it's they're subject matter experts, and Jim put it so eloquently that we answer to our residents. I'd be more than willing to help out like we have with everything else, but it's really up to Aaron and Gary if they want my assistance. If they do, yeah, I'll put the time in. If they say, hey, we got it, we'll figure it out, I'll leave it up to them.
All right. Did you have something you want to add?
I
Councilor?
was just gonna say, I think the town staff is capable of doing this without having another cook in the kitchen, but that's my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that Councilor Madnick has a unique skill set for hyper organization, which is sometimes very helpful. So
No, but Dan, I did mention to you one time that I'd like to talk about what Aaron was just talking about. There's a program out there.
Yeah,
And I ain't tonight for that discussion, but there's a town that needs the infrastructure we need. They're advanced, all our surrounding neighbors, West Greenwich, Charleston, Hopkinton. They're running off the MPA, you're getting feedback, your money back, or certain things, but that's another discussion, but it's just something really gotta think about. It's really important.
yeah.
Okay.
And so we can vote on that. If you agree, disagree, whatever, whatever everyone agrees or thinks that's totally cool. So we'll vote. And then I have something else on Pine Hill.
Okay. I think you guys are right. Staff can handle it, so I'll bow out. And I know I pushed for the motion, but that's why I pushed for the motion. So there's clarity later, right? Perfect. So we'll go for a roll call vote. Councilor Manning,
No.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
No,
and Wilcox, no.
I just don't want to force the staff in anything.
I hear you.
I know, I got a little, I talked to Aaron today, and I just want to address I'm impatient with the lack of attention to our infrastructure needs, and not that staff hasn't done it, but over years, we have not really, in my opinion, and I'm just one person and a resident, really focused on a detailed plan on when and how we're going to try to handle our infrastructure. And when you talk to residents, the biggest thing that comes out is they pay a lot in taxes and our roads are crap. So I feel like, and as an engineer, I have to come up with POAMs, plans of actions and milestones. And I feel like as a town,
Which would have been helpful in that group, just for the record.
Yeah.
They can look it up. They can.
and Mark's gonna give you a hard time, cadence.
Look, we already voted
all
no.
that stuff,
It's good.
but,
I'm good.
you know,
It's good. It's dead.
Gary did, I said it before, Gary did an excellent job with the road evaluation report. That's step one. And the town is still doing things ad hoc, but obviously we do it ad hoc because we have funding limitations. But at least if we know exactly how we want to attack a problem, then we can determine how to allocate that fund. So that's just the argument I'm making. And I don't want state bureaucracy when we get to that point to get in the way. And I was really disappointed to hear that PEAR's not gonna be done until March of 27. Like, I'm like boiling inside.
Can I address the other piece on Pine Hill Road? So Gary,
Should we wrap up KG by having some kind of action to direct staff to create this plan?
they'll do what they're gonna do. That's it.
All right.
Gary, when we met last year on this, we talked about Pine Hill, and you had mentioned Pine Hill was in a state where you wanted to take preparatory actions of some of the chip sealing to prevent this situation from getting worse, so that we don't have to spend more money later. I know it was $300,000. There was some conversation with other towns to chip seal it, but now that's been put off. Does that mean we're going to spend more money later because we can't?
Not really. It's just when you get on board, it depends, because they only shim a certain time of the year. They'll go out like there's places you got, and that's how they do the pricing too. They figure you're shimming where the couple bad spots they gotta fix. But usually when it comes to time to come for that, everybody's going back out, working off the MPA. And the more mileage you get, so say Charleston has so much happening, so we work off each other's bid, piggyback. And the more mileage you get, the price comes down a bit. So that's pretty much how that works.
All right, so that'll be something we'll come back and discuss.
That, yeah, because we didn't have the money for that.
Okay,
And then we get to the position of maintaining roads and not having to restore and reconstruct them.
right.
We'll be in that position because we'll have lots of miles of roads to chip seal, and that just brings that price down.
Okay.
The renovation, Jim, there's so many things. But we're so far behind to catch up to get new roads done. There's stuff we should be
Yeah.
doing too to prevent crack sealing.
No, I know.
Oh, and even chip sealing some old roads that, it ain't the chip seal like in the past days, but the asphalt chip seal is a great product.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, I have a question on Old Mountain. It might be a Gary question. We'll see. I'll make him come back up because he doesn't realize I'm saying that. Where specifically is the overlay section on Old Mountain?
So at the bottom of the hill corner.
Okay,
that
we're
was
like
all
the river.
required in the 2010 flooding.
Okay.
Yep, so that was. all
That's
the
fine.
Wetlands, and you can fix that in an emergency.
Okay,
You can do wetlands, but.
thank you. I wanted to make sure. That's what I thought, but also wanted to just make sure. So the recommendation from staff is to pave Old Mountain Road from Carolina Nooseneck all the way down, as well as Cherry Lane.
No, there's
Not-
phases for Old
yeah,
Mountain,
two
two projects.
phases. So just the bottom section is, the bottom corner sections omitted on Old Mountain. We're not paving.
Okay,
So it'll be
project two and
sections.
project three. Sorry, I was going up and down when I was trying to say it all.
Yep, and Cherry, yep.
All right, so I'll make a motion, to, wait, I think we should probably,
What do we got?
right here from the public.
I didn't see any hands up. Do we have? Oh, all right, sure. Go ahead, sir.
Everyone else votes.
Please state your name for the record.
Councilors, Jim Brier. No, if you could again quickly on this overlay, because I drive that road all the time, and I'm not sure where it is. Exactly on Old Mountain Road, what's gonna be repaved?
It's my understanding the overlay is of reference when you go down the hill and you have Beaver River coming through. And there's a little bridge. And then you kind of go up a hill and then turn again. I don't drive it every day, so that's terrible
Okay,
direction.
so the hill coming down from Hillsdale,
The hill's coming down to Hillsdale to that section that was.
that
repaired in
immediately
2010.
S corner.
Yeah, and then not through there and then heading up the hill.
So when you're going back up where you actually before Taft Hill Road.
Not far.
That's the road.
It says from,
What we're gonna do is from Carolina Nooseneck, go up, and then it's just as you start through the S turns, during the 2010 flood, that's what got all washed out past the bridge down the bottom and collapsed. So that's a new one, and I mean, it's only an inch half overlay, but it says, well, we can get done now. So we're gonna go just as we start down where the new paving started, where they did that overlay. Then we're gonna go down the bottom all the way around, and when you come around, just go over the bridge. That's where it ends, and it's real crappy around that last corner to go out to Hillsdale, that's gonna be done.
If I could, just to make one small comment.
Yeah.
On that. On Hillsdale Road, as you're approaching Old Mountain Road. At that intersection. If you're familiar with it, you know that you're gonna drive in the middle of the road because.
Yeah.
The berm goes to the right. So when you're driving up to Old Mountain Road, it stops here, but on the other side, it's offset. It starts over here. So when you're coming up Old Mountain Road, you're gonna make a right-hand turn. You're actually driving like 2 feet into the travel lane.
Mhm.
So if you look at the berm, next time you're driving, you notice it does, it goes off to the right, so it's like offset.
Okay.
And I don't know if you recall, Madam President, I brought this up a few years back about putting a sign up, yellow with arrows. I gave a map to President Trimmer about this, that, it's, you gotta be careful.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful, the way the cars come out of there now. So I mean, maybe you could just take a look at it or something, just to see what it would be helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else from the public about our roads or anybody online? All right. Do we have an action for road repairs?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that town council approve the bid awards for Cherry Lane, Old Mountain Road Project 2, Old Mountain Road Project 3 to DeAmber Construction, who was the lowest responsive bidder, totaling $754,350, with the remaining funds needed to come from the RIDOT reimbursement or from available street maintenance line items for the recommended projects.
Second. Any further council discussion? We'll go for a roll call vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
and Wilcox, yes. Awesome. That brings us on to new business. We have our report from our financial statements from Hugh Shady and Co. That's not Shady. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. You, Haiti? Thank you. We have Mary who's going to be giving the presentation. Are you Mary? Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. My name is Mary Sahadi. I am a partner with the firm of Hagan Sahadi. I have with me tonight Megan Highland. She was the audit manager on your engagement. So we're here this evening really to talk about your 2025 year-end audit, even though we have now surpassed 2026. So I will keep this relatively brief, but if you have any questions, because you all have the document, I'd be certainly happy to answer them. To start with, I will let you know that you've had a clean opinion, which generally means no modifications and no exceptions with regard to the financial statements themselves. As far as the Yellow Book report goes, which is the report on internal controls, there was one finding primarily due to which is really also the reason for the lateness of the report in this past year, for the turnover in the finance department. So you had, some struggles and challenges during fiscal year 25 that you didn't necessarily have in previous years that we've done the audit for, that delayed the financial statements significantly past the state's deadline of December 31st. With that said, the financial statements are basically in the same format as they have been in the last number of years, in that the financial statements begin with the town's ability to do management discussion and analysis. So they're allowed to speak, it's an unaudited section of the financial statements, and they're allowed to speak to both the fiscal year 25, in this case that we were in comparison to the fiscal year 24, and provide information to the readers both in a condensed financial statement format as well as in a narrative format as it relates to financial highlights, budgetary highlights, debt, capital projects, and certainly what economic factors would affect the next fiscal year. So that is the first section of your financial statements. And again, it's unaudited and it's presented by management. As a add-on to that comment, just so you know, in fiscal 26, the GASB created a new GASB, which is GASB number 103. And what 103 is going to do is expand the discussion that management will be required to include in that section of the financial statements. And that is primarily because the original GASB that put that statement in was GASB 34 a number of years ago, and it became more of a template over the years where it was just sort of fill in the numbers in terms of the comparison of the condensed information and as well as the financial highlights. And so they're looking, the GASB, so that's the generally accepted accounting standards board, they're looking for a lot more detail as to the whys in terms of what the increases and the decreases are. And so we will work together with Aaron and Danielle to help them put together that MD&A for fiscal year 26. The statements again are in the same format that they've been in the prior years. The first two statements are the statement of net position as well as the statement of activities. And what those two statements are they are your fund financial statements converted to the full accrual basis of accounting. So as you know, the town and every town provides their budget and actual on what's referred to as the modified accrual basis of accounting. So really what you're doing is you are expensing out debt expenses, you're expensing out capital. You just had a long conversation about infrastructure. all of those items will get capitalized in the net position statement as well as in the statement of activities. So, just a couple of things to point out. As you certainly know, your infrastructure had some increases over the past year. That's all explained further on page 43 of the document, but primarily $1.4 million of the increase in the capital assets related to the infrastructure. The deferred pension amount as well as the pension liability, that is calculated by the state and the actuaries that do the state pension plans. And that information is primarily included in your document, again, because the total liabilities of the town need to be reflected somewhere. So here in the town of Richmond, the net pension liability at the end of 25 was $155,000. That was actually a decrease over the prior year, which was at 402. And again, it's based on the actuary's computation of what that pension liability is, and based on the census data that's provided by the town to the state for purposes of that calculation. Your debt is reflected in the financial statements as well. You'll see that your total debt is $2.2 million over the past year. That again is reflected in the financial statements on page 47. The primary debt that's included in that information is the 2024 Rhode Island infrastructure debt, which was $2.2 million. So of the total, the majority of it is the 24 infrastructure. You do have one item on, and I'm just bringing it up now. It's on the balance sheet. It's called Right to Use Technology Subscriptions. You will also see that included in the notes to the financial statements in more detail. And I want to bring out there is that you have one payment left on all of that software that you have included in your Right to Use subscriptions. And so in FY26, it will be the last lease payment, because really what that is lease payments. It'll be the last lease payment that will be due, and the town will more likely than not be negotiating new leases for their software. On the statement of activities, obviously the largest amount is education, which, as you know, you pay as an assessment to the Charahoe School District, and the amounts in the operating grants as well as the amounts in the expenses themselves were very similar to FY24, so there wasn't a significant increase. The balance sheet, which is on page 18 and page 20, basically, because 19 and 21 are the reconciliations to the two statements we just talked about. But the balance sheet is included on page 18. Just a couple of things to bring to your attention that might be unique to 25 if you were to compare that to 24 is in the general fund. You'll see a prepaid item of $1,100,000. That is the Charahoe School District advance that was prepaid to Charahoe prior to June 30 for the July payment. So it's included as prepaid at June 30, 25, but if you were to look in prior years, you generally would not have that prepaid. It just happened to be based on the timing that that payment was made slightly before June 30th and truly reflected or was for the 26 year. On the fund balance area, the fund balance, you've got $5.6 million. You can see that that's the unassigned or available for use. That's $5.6 million. That is primarily increased over the previous year. If you were to look at page 20 by $671,000. So what that really means is your revenues came in higher than your expenditures for fiscal 25 in the amount of $1,000,001, but you did have a transfer into that capital project fund that you budgeted for 439,000. And you can stop me anytime if I'm just kind of rambling numbers to you guys. Because I do appreciate that, you know, a lot of times it's like, oh my God, what are all these numbers and what is she talking about? But in essence, I guess what I want to say here is the town is doing a good job in the sense of monitoring their revenues and their expenditures on an annual basis. The budget and actual is a required supplementary page, so you'll see that further back in the document itself. And here in Richmond, you detail a lot of the expense line items in the document itself. So everything that you pretty much want to look at in terms of expenses, you can see most of the detail there. And then any detail in any particular line, Danielle would have to pull for you if you'd like to see that. The committed amount in the general fund is $606,000 at the end of the year. 342 of that was the amount that you, as a council, set aside for FY26, if in fact you needed it. You had the same, or not the same amount, but you had an amount set aside in the 25 budget that you did not end up having to need to utilize. So again, good budgeting in the sense of monitoring your revenue and your expenditures. Page 20 has the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. I don't have a lot to say here. The only expense that I would bring to your attention, or maybe two expenses, your public works expense increased significantly over the prior year, primarily because of the increased costs of both hauling and tipping fees. So the expense did go up a little bit over $76,000, but again, mostly as a result of the increased costs to both the tipping fees as well as the hauling fees. And then you'll see that the debt service is slightly higher than the prior year. And again, it's because the first payment was due on that 24 Rhode Island infrastructure note. The American Rescue Plan should be pretty much done at this point. But as of June 30, as of June 30, 25, you still had $687,000 left to spend. And Aaron can probably help me out here. It's probably all spent or pretty much close to being all spent at this time.
We are going to try and spend every dime.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there you go. No different than any other community. Everyone is trying to spend every dime. Some of them actually having trouble with vendors right now, trying to get every dime spent, especially if they're using it for any type of infrastructure. So obviously you have that in mind and you're taking care of getting that done. The only other major capital project you have is the facility, and in fiscal 25, again, because we're talking about 25, you had 1.3 million, almost $1.4 million worth of expenditures. That brought the fund balance to $2.4 million at the end of 25. And again, we're a year in the arrears, so you know, we don't have the 26 closings yet. So it'd be hard to really speak about that, but you continue to spend on that particular project. The column that you see that says non-major governmental funds, that's the aggregate of all the remaining funds that the city has here. The town has here. I made you a city all of a sudden, that the town has here with regard to mostly special revenue funds. So we're really talking about most of the grants. And you'll see that the 179 on page 18, so if we flip back to 18, sorry, we'll see that $179,000 of grants did in fact have deficits at June 30, 25. The biggest deficit was, and you can see that list on page 49, but the largest amount was 116,000, and it was for the DEM trail grant. And it's my understanding that was a timing where you had the expenditures in 25, but that revenue should probably has been, again, received in fiscal '26. Your water fund is considered an enterprise fund. Not a lot to talk about in your water fund. It had a small surplus in fiscal '25 of $38 million. Your user fees and your operating expenses again were in line with the prior years and no significant differences. So not a whole lot to talk about there. And then your fiduciary funds, those are your private purpose trust funds. So you have a number of trust funds here in the town. And that represents an ending balance of 229,000. And if you look quickly on page 26, primarily $38,000 was interest income and dividends, which is mostly interest income, and a small amount of expenditures of 7,717. And as you all know, the interest rates have still continued to be good. And so both the interest earnings in the governmental funds, as well as the interest earnings here in the fiduciary funds, has been still very solid for all the communities throughout the United States, not even just here in Rhode Island. Beyond the basic financial statements, which is what those statements are actually referred to as, are the notes to the financial statements. And I won't bore you with all of that information, but each page of the notes represents additional detail with regard to both the cash balances, the investment balances, any interfund transactions, the capital assets that we talked about are on page 43. The debt, I believe, is on page 46. The leases that we talked about, and again, I'm sure you're all well aware of them and probably in the verge of negotiating them around 47. Most of them are all software. They were pretty much all had a measurement date of July 1, 22, with their last payments in 26. So they're all expiring. So there'll be a lot of work here with the town to renew a lot of those leases and licenses. Further than that, the page 51, I just brought this to your attention only because I think one of you spoke about it slightly a little bit earlier, and that is your tax abatements. And so here in Richmond, you only have the one taxpayer that has tax abatements, and they're required to be disclosed in the financial statements. And for fiscal '25, that abatement amounted to $8,900. I think the only other statements and to bring to your attention is the required supplementary. So we talked about that a little bit a minute ago. And it starts on page 65 for the town of Richmond. And this is where you can see all of the detail, which is your budget and actual. What I will tell you here in Richmond, you don't have a lot of amendments, so there's not a lot of changes between the original budget and the final. But another part of GASB 103 that is changing won't have a lot of effect here, but they're requiring both the original column plus an amendment column, as well as the final budget column, and then the actual and variance will remain the same. And that's primarily because if you are a community that amends your budgets on a regular basis, then your variance always looks positive. It doesn't ever look like you've overspent any line items because you've adjusted them right before June 30. So the new standard wants more transparency, and so they want more information on what was that original budget and what is the final budget, showing those amendments. So for some communities, that will be significant, again, because a lot of communities will make those adjustments in June, and it just looks fine when the financial statements are presented, when in fact there were overages. And I just picked out a couple. We've got legal counsel here today, so they certainly are more aware than we are with regard to legal services, but I believe in fiscal 25, there were litigating expenses or litigation expenses that were not budgeted for, and so that particular line item is over. You did set aside some monies for contingency and you didn't need them, so you have a positive turn back there. We did talk a minute ago, when we were talking about the committed fund balance for the 26 budget. You did the same with the 25 budget. In the 25 budget, it's shown on page 65. It was 310,000, basically 309,949. And you know, you again, because you have good budgeting skills here in Richmond, you used no part of that. So that was a positive turn back. And then the only other department that I just made a note on when I was looking at this earlier today was Public Works. And, you know, there's a lot of things in Public Works. You had less repairs, less snow removal. You had some new individuals that were hired at a lesser rate than your previous employed individuals in that department. So you see that you had almost $5,000 turn back or positive variance in the Public Works line. Other than that, the only other page that I'm just going to bring to your attention, I think you might all be aware of it, but in essence that you're not. So the general fund here in Richmond is not just your budgetary fund, but it's your budgetary fund plus your reval fund plus your comprehensive plan fund. And so to help the readers of this document, we include supplementary information on page 75 and 76, showing you the three funds added together, so that when you're trying to compare the general fund as presented in the basic financial statements to your budget and actual, you'll realize that there are a few differences. Here, they're very, very immaterial because, quite frankly, you had no expenses in the comprehensive plan fund, and you only had $1,600 worth of expenses in the reval fund. So the numbers that you see, if I want to refer to them as the numbers, but the amounts you see for each of the functions, general government, public safety, public works, etc., on this page are very similar, obviously, to what you're seeing in the basic financial statements. And that's pretty much all I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining and for sharing all that information about the budget and our audit. Does council have any questions?
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so a couple clear, Mark's like, he's gonna lose his mind. All right, bear with me for a minute.
You didn't say nothing.
I know, I'm just preempting him just to warn him. I'll buy him a beer at some point.
You will be annoyed in a little bit.
All right, page 46. So this is all the bonds and loans payable. I want to point out, it looks like, I've been talking to Danielle about this. We're gonna pay off another bond at the end of 2028. So I don't, it looks like that's gonna save the town about $268,000 per year, which is nice. But I noticed the 2024 water capital improvements bond that was issued in May of 24. It says it has a maturity date of August 1st of 2027. Is that accurate?
I believe so. That would have come from Danielle. And what is very interesting about that is you'll notice 2 lines down, it hasn't been drawn from the state yet.
Yeah, and I know Danielle went home, she wasn't feeling well, but if that's true, I mean, then next year we're gonna have, looks like another $300,000 taken off of our debt costs. If that's true, but
Well, but you haven't drawn it, so it's a net zero.
the net zero, okay.
So if it is intended to be drawn and it's due, that's correct. I would assume my guess, I'm gonna make an assumption here, is that that term is gonna be rewritten when the 300 is drawn.
So in terms of, maybe this is getting too deep, in terms of how we handle our budget, when we come into the next budget session in the spring, is that 300K principal gonna be carried in the budget?
No, because you haven't drawn it down. So right now, the way the debt was worded or written, I should say written, you'll see if you go all the way over to fiscal current portion, there's no current portion for the next fiscal year because you haven't drawn down the 300,000, yeah. Well, you might have by now, but as of 25, you had not drawn it down.
Okay, so that would not have been in our current budget then.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's not even captured. All right, so that answers that.
Now, your current budget, I should clarify that, because your current budget is actually 27's. It wasn't in the 26.
Yeah,
Because we're past July 1.
fiscal year
It's just-
26-27, I think is how we have it marked. Okay, understood. And then I got a little bit confused here on this table on the bottom. In 26 through 29, we have various principles of our bonds. Obviously, we pay one off, and so we go from 491 to 247. But then in 2030 to 2034, it looks like we're adding $1.3 million to our allocations. I'm just wondering, that's money that we're already paying, correct? It's not money that we're going to be adding as an expense? in
Well, it's
2030?
it's 30 to 34. So the way the GASB, it requires the town to present this note is the first 4 years, they need to present it annually. Obviously using it for budgetary purposes, and then beyond that, in 5-year increments. So that 1.2 million you see is for 5 years. It's for years 30 to 34.
Okay, but we're currently paying that 235 principal yearly. I guess what I'm concerned about is this going to show up as a line item in our budget that right now isn't there, and it's going to make it look like our expenses went up even though they did.
The
Is that
1,285,000? No, 1/5 of that will show up,
1/5. So the
or whatever
235.
the payment is, because I'm sure it's decreasing payment.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so that is currently captured in our budget in some
It
way.
will be, right, in your 2030 budget, yes.
But it's not in our fiscal year 27 budget.
In your 27 budget should be 485 principal and $55,000 for interest.
Okay, so I'm the slow person in the
No,
room
it's
here.
okay.
When we come
I'm the
into
engineer and I'm the accountant.
Yeah,
so-
exactly. So when we come into fiscal year 2030, we're gonna see a line item that went up from 247 to 1.285.
No, no,
No,
no,
so split
1/5 of, well, I'm saying 1/5 because it's a 5-year increment, but depending on what the amortization schedule is, it could go
But I
from.
think that there's a bond that ends in 2033, so it might be 3 years. but
Okay.
That's for 5 separate years of $1 million, so split it in 5 ways.
Right, yeah, there is a bond that comes off in 2033. Okay, so it's just the way it's being presented here.
Right, it's based on the accounting standards that, because they don't want us to make this chart so long that we're gonna list every single year.
Got it. Okay, and
It's
then
a lot of years.
I got a couple more questions. I'll try to make it quick.
That's okay.
Page 49, there is a non-spendable fund in the fund balance of roughly 1.12 million. If I understand correctly, that's for restricted for a community center.
No, that is the Charahoe payment
Okay.
that we spoke about earlier in the prepaid item.
Okay, so okay, good. So I'm gonna mark that down because what I thought I remember was that we had 1.3 million allocated for a community center. Do you know where that is in this?
That's
budget?
probably, and I'm guessing right now because I don't have all your backup details, but I'm guessing that's under capital projects, under the line that says public facilities, 1,366,000.
Okay,
Good guess.
Don't know them all by heart.
That's
Now-
pretty good for a guess.
I'm doing okay so
There
far.
it
yeah, a couple more questions. I'm really just trying to understand how municipal finances work.
Okay.
We've been doing this twice now, but now this is the first time I've been through an audit. I don't think we went through it our first year.
Because that's what this is.
This is okay. All right, so on page 65, if I'm reading this correctly, total revenues, we brought in 568K more than we estimated, and then we end up spending 17.5 more than the estimate for like a net revenue of roughly 550K. That then goes into our fund balance, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then on page 66, these are kind of all going to be fund balance questions. Page 66,
Yeah.
if I understand this correctly, looking at excess of expenditures over revenues budgetary basis, we brought in 977K more than we spent.
Well,
That-
revenue over expenses, so you're gonna net the revenue against the expenses on that line.
So when it says variance with final budget, we end up bringing in 631K more than what we expected. Is that accurate?
That's correct. So you had a surplus. So if we look at it from a surplus or a deficit, the town in 25 had a surplus of 631,000, combining the net of the revenue surplus and the expenditures.
Okay, so this 631 compared to that 568 and then the net of the 550 I just mentioned, how do those two relate?
So the 568 is the revenue.
Mhm.
And then you're gonna sum up all the functions of government for the expenditures, and that surplus was 63,122, the line right above the 631, and those two are portion of the 631.
Okay, got it. So we brought in more and then we didn't spend as much. That's where the 631 comes from. That goes into the fund balance. And then I'm gonna scroll all, this is a final question. I think this is gonna wrap it all up on page 76. Then it looks like we had a net change in the fund balance of $671,000.
That's correct. So 653, so that's what I was just talking about, the fact that the town here has two additional funds. So the 653 is the general fund portion. So you're gonna compare the 653 to the whatever you just said the number was that I don't have off the top of my head, the 631. And then you're gonna go to page 67. Sorry
Yep.
about this, but this is how you do the reconciliation.
That's the other page, all right.
And you're gonna see that there's an unbudgeted amount for the revalve. There is the budgeted payment for debt service, and admin costs that go to the enterprise funds. And then you have the $20,000 budgetary transfer. So if you net the revenue and the expenditures, that's the difference basically between the 631 that you see on one page and the 653 you see on the other.
Okay, now I'm gonna wrap it up.
Okay.
In fiscal year 25.
We were wrapping it up last time.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know, but now I'm bringing it home.
All right.
This is like home run.
No, go.
I'm a resident that's paying taxes. And I talk to my elected officials and I say, man, it'd be really nice if I get a reduction in my taxes. And then I look at the audit and I see that we brought in $513,000 more in property taxes than we estimated from our budget. So does that mean in practice, we could reduce the amount of property taxes we're bringing in? Or is that just a function of, for some reason, we had some improvements happen in the town, we brought in more than we thought?
Well,
Trying to understand.
no, I understand what you're saying. So it's basically twofold, right? So it's what you brought in. So it's not what you have in receivables. So it's what you collected, right? So it's not the assessment. So you want to look, and I don't even know what page that is, but you want to look, you're gonna have me find it, huh? Yeah, I do have the whole document here. Yeah, you want to look at page 91. And 91, we'll talk about the assessment, and you'll see that a lot of years have old years that are still outstanding. But when you're talking about your property tax assessment, you really should be comparing the 20,371,720 to the assessment in the prior year, which unfortunately I don't have that with me. But you want to compare your two assessments, not necessarily what was collected, because you could have collected more in fiscal 25 because you collected more on the older years.
So we just had a statistical reevaluation. So there should be some expectation that collected versus receivables might be different because of the assessment that was completed at the end of December.
Correct.
All right, I'll be interested to see how this turns out in a couple months.
Correct.
Because the way I look at, and the reason I'm asking about all this is, there's been some discussions about how we utilize the fund balance. And fund balance, one, is for cash flow, but two, if it's leftover taxpayer money, I look at that as one, you can either give it back, or two, you can use that for capital improvement projects like infrastructure, such as paving. And I think that's, interesting policy discussion from council perspective. So I appreciate your time and answering my questions, because now I have a better understanding of the numbers I'm seeing here. So thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And I say this to every council. Sometimes I wonder why, but no, I'm only kidding. If you have any further questions, you can always reach out to me at the firm, or, Erin and Danielle have a very good handle on the finances here at the town, so they ought to be able to give you a lot of the detail, because you have to remember too, a lot of what we look at is globally, right? So we look at materiality. So if a number is immaterial by calculation, we may not even be looking at the details in it. Here in Richmond, it's a smaller community. We may look at maybe more of the detailed accounts that we might not look at in, one of the bigger cities, because you can imagine what their chart of accounts looks like. But we do try to look at them and, knowing things like the tipping and the haulings, what generated the difference in the public works, or looking at the legal expense and being able to look back and say, oh yeah, I can see that that's litigation, because you have a sub account for litigation. Not everybody does that. So it might all say legal services. And so without the details from the town, meaning Erin and Danielle, we wouldn't necessarily know that. But you have a significantly longer chart of accounts, which is really good from an analytics point of view, in order to be able to see some of the increases and decreases from year to year, and also from budget to actual.
Well, I have it on the record that you said we have good budgeting skills in Richmond. So
You
I'm
do.
very proud that we.
You do, because anyone that
Take it
ends the
seriously.
year in a positive light has good budgeting skills. And anyone that honestly budgets to use surpluses and then don't need to use the surpluses, because they either maintain their expenditures at below what they had anticipated them to be, or for some reason had additional revenues, is good financial work, in the town.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. Do we have other counselors with questions? No? All right. I think that's all we have then. Thank you so much for coming down.
You're
And
welcome.
we'll definitely reach out if we have any questions.
And hopefully we'll see you a lot earlier next year.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will. All right, new business 2, I understand is being postponed again. So I'll have a motion to file. Discussion of Mr. Yancey for land proposal conveyance.
Okay.
Any council questions? All right, it was just by the request of the applicant. We'll go for a roll call vote. Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. Next, we have a request from Counselor Madnick for a presentation. I'll kick it over to you.
Okay, so we're gonna try to make this quick. We won't go through the presentation. Jim said I would bore the council. But on July 24th,
Just to clarify, I think I said that the information is linked to clerk base for the public to review. In the interest of the public, I think a summation of what we did is appropriate.
that means Dan talks too much, which I agree with. So, the Richmond Task Force and the members that form the Main Street RI cohort presented our final project on July 24th to the remainder of the Main Street America cohort and the consultants that were working with us. We came up with I think a really robust presentation on planning for Richmond's economic vitality in the future. So essentially what we titled it is a Main Street America framework for village revitalization, prepared by our Richmond, Wyoming cohort. And we did that because that's really what our focus is. And the focus of this council and all the candidates that ran for election in 2024 was to focus on economic development and moving our town forward. And putting together the Rich Task Force, and then joining the Main Street America Rhode Island cohort, I think is going to help push us in that direction. So we had Councilor Palmigano, our town planner Gillette, our Economic Development Commission Chair Gary Parker, Raymond Cox, who's on the Rich Task Force, Joe Terrarima, who's on the EDC, and then myself and the council that provide the presentation. So if you go to the next slide, go through real quick. So the vision is to preserve Richmond's rural character while strengthening the village centers, supporting local businesses, and improving the quality of life. Well, what does that mean in practice? That means that Richmond residents Would like to really keep our town rural. That's what people like. They like their open space, the quietness. They like the community that we have here. But they do want to have and see some additional economic development. Some more amenities such as recreation, some more ability to shop and spend their money commercially in Richmond, and additionally with more public improvements, additional tax revenue. So that's really what drove this presentation. I'm going to turn this slide over to Jim just to explain quickly why Main Street America, since he's the one that brought it to our town. And then when he's ready, he can turn it back over to me.
Sure. So it was a great opportunity. It was the first time that we had this opportunity to participate in Main Street America as a cohort. So it's been extant for many years, but it's the first time there's been a cohort that's been funded in Rhode Island. If you remember, we had Jillian Feichel come to speak before council quite a few months back to present on the concept. We utilized the mechanism, the Rich Task Force, to be the organization that submitted our request to join it. And we were one of, there were about 20 other teams or so from around the state. I think the big takeaway too, we learned a lot of the Main Street America approach, the process, the 4 points of which you'll see. And, you know, to go to those meetings, they were full day sessions. Some were on Fridays and some were on Saturdays. So for those of us who have daytime jobs, we had to take vacation days to go and do this. Town staff was more than willing to volunteer their time to go on the weekend. We learned a lot. We represented Richmond really well. And in our final presentation, I think we had one of the most robust presentations about what our plan moving forward is for our Main Street, which is the Wyoming corridor 138. You know, we were there with you know, Main Street cohorts from North Kingstown, which has 2 planners, you know, 15 economic development people, and like all these resources. We were there with Providence, Pawtucket, all these different communities, and we really, I think, shined a very positive light on what we intend to do here with our Main Street. Do we have the same historic infrastructure they have in those cities? No. Do we have the same resources or challenges? No. But we left that learning a lot and having a plan to move forward utilizing the task force. So I think all in all, that was a really positive experience using Main Street America, and we're going to stay connected with them on their continuing education. So I think that's the thing.
All right, thank you. If you can go to the next slide. So next slide just explains the 4 points that Main Street America uses to facilitate community transformation. So it includes economic vitality, design, organization, promotion. So I'll run through them real quick and I'll just highlight some things. Next slide is organization. So the purpose of forming an organization and what we used for our starting organization was the Rich Task Force. There are a bunch of different opportunities and types of organizations you can form. But essentially the purpose for Richmond is to revitalize the many districts that we have, various villages, and commercial corridor, which is Wyoming, Route 95, 138 corridor, and use an approach that fits the specific neighborhood. So it's not a one size fits all, even though Richmond is a fairly tight-knit community. There are little pockets of Richmond that are all different than each other. So we have to take a different approach to each one. The second part of this is promotion. That's on the next slide. Is how we're going to brand Richmond and try to get people to come to Richmond, like for events such as the Washington County Fair. We have our food truck events tomorrow night, and then we're going to have a fall and potentially winter festival with an ice rink. But when you promote the town, you also have to work with your current business entities. Like for instance, if we have a winter festival with an ice rink, we don't want to have our restaurants closed at the same time that we're having people come to the town. So we want to make sure that we're communicating with all our business entities so they can also take part and take advantage of those types of things. The next slide is one of the third point is design. Is how do you actually do this? Well, part of it is the aesthetic of the town, and that's driving through working with the planning board and our EDC and our property and business owners on how we actually make our town look a little better. I mean, everyone's aware that we've been really focused on what to do with Charahoe Plaza and with Richmond Commons property and those things that we've been working hard on. And we want to have pride in our town. And right now we have a big dirt pit and we have a dilapidated strip mall. And both of those things we hope in the near future will see some really good development for the town. And then the final point is economic vitality. So kind of bringing all these things together and determining like what our inventory of the businesses is in town, what our community wants in terms of both residents and businesses. We have a pretty good idea of what our community wants from our comprehensive community plan, but we don't quite know a lot of what our businesses community needs. So what we did, and I'm going to kind of jump ahead here. Well, I already talked about a lot of, so I'm going to jump ahead.
We did a
to-
survey,
Yep.
get some results. We're going to continue to get results, impact on the community. We want to hear from business owners about what they want to see. I think you could summarize
I'm going to.
kind of like, what were some of the questions, Dan? When your peak seasons for your clientele are, just trying to give us an indication of what their business patterns are and how we can help them as we design that area.
Yeah, Kendra, can you go down a bunch of pages to what we heard in business? We kind of already talked about this, so I won't go through it. Yep, so that's a comp plan. We're gonna go to the next one. All right, so we got together and came up with a business community survey. We've got, I think Gary put together a inventory of like 40 plus businesses. We were able to, in short term, get surveys out to 12 businesses. That include Aubuchon Ace Hardware, Riverhead Building Supply, Wyoming Package, and Richmond Wine and Spirits. You can go to the next slide. Higher Grounds, Subway, Twisted Pizza, Richmond Smoke, some other services, and YMCA. On the next slide, it's what we heard, which is important, is most of the customers in our businesses come from the Richmond, Wyoming, Charahoe area. A population increase will surely provide more customers. Most businesses, which is no surprise, rely mostly on Richmond residents for employment, so that's good. One thing that we found that was interesting, there's very little business-to-business relationship. So we need to determine a way to get businesses to talk to each other and help each other out. The busiest months are in the summer, the slowest are in January and February. And that's interesting because if we do have a winter festival and we're able to bring people in, the slowest months may not be January and February anymore. Biggest barriers to business growth are physical space and marketing visibility. So I know there's a lot of interest in, hey, Richmond is not business friendly. We don't have businesses. Well, part of that is because we frankly don't have infrastructure. We need to build buildings. And hopefully Richmond Commons and Charahoe Plaza will help us do that. And the best thing that we heard, and I take a lot of pride in this, is that there was no concern or frustration with the Richmond government. So the Richmond government is not the reason that we have a lack of businesses or we have issues with businesses in town. That was a really positive thing to hear. Additional things, we need to improve pedestrian safety and state infrastructure. So that needs some investment. That's something that the council's been working on with RIDOT. The community really prefers like a small town atmosphere, so that should drive a lot of decision making. And once we're able to start moving forward with some additional development in Charahoe Plaza and Richmond Commons, that'll expand some of the limiting factors we have, which is the commercial infrastructure. And then quickly, I'll summarize. We went through a 10-year roadmap to determine how to move Richmond forward. So the first couple of years, which we're doing now, which is organizing, which is what the Rich Task Force is, and then catalyst projects such as the Winter Festival and Ice Rink, and then further development of Richmond Commons and Charahoe Plaza in the 6 to 10 year expanded investment in the community. So if we keep working hard, trying to move through this process in hopefully 6 to 10 years, I know it sounds like a long time, we should have a much more economically viable community that supports our Richmond and also meets the needs of the community. Thank you.
I think that's actually months, if not years. Just say that. Yep. Thank you, Dan.
Awesome. So thank you so much for your presentation. Do we have anything else on that? Did you want to comment?
Yes.
Sure, come up to the podium. Do state your name for the record.
Goldie Williams, Richmond. I know for a fact that the Y will not move because I know the director of the Y. She said, no matter what you hear, we will not be moving.
And who is the
Okay.
director?
Karen Allen,
So it's not Sheila Letty, who's the CEO?
No. It's Karen Allen.
Okay, we've spoken to Sheila Letty.
It may be good to let the
Well,
business themselves represent how they feel, but I do appreciate the information.
Okay.
Any other comments from council? Awesome.
Oh,
yes,
thank
Ellen?
you. No, thank you, Dan. Thank you for the summation.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you for going to Main Street RI. It sounds
Yeah.
awesome. All right, on to a request for myself, for a few discussions and considerations on some restrictions in town. With development does come some concerns from the public on what we're bringing to the town. So the first one, I do want to say, while our ordinances say if there's no use code for something, it's prohibited, right? You need a use code in order to have it prohibited, allowed in any town or any district. But it doesn't hurt, I think, to have belts and suspenders when there's concerns that are legitimate. The first one is a restriction on pet sales at retail businesses and other commercial establishments in Richmond. This one came directly from a constituent who's here this evening. Thank you for being here. So the materials and the research was actually done by her. So I don't want to, I need to give credit where credit is due. And what I would like to see for an action out of this is a referral to our town solicitor to draft something similar that is being used in other towns to prohibit pet sales. And when this was first brought to my attention, my first concern was, well, what about our existing amazing #1 pet shop in the entire country that's currently existing? And part of the constituents' research was reaching out to that business owner and seeing how they felt about that. Any ordinance changes would go to a public hearing, so I would expect the business owner, like I just said, would represent themselves at something like that if there were any concerns, but there were no concerns. So what was that? Yeah, yep. from
They don't
that.
sell livestock.
Right, they don't. So that was another concern,
Yeah.
like livestock
Yeah.
is another thing. I wouldn't want to have any kind of restrictions on farm life, livestock, things like that, but there is a concern from residents regarding the treatment of animals in what can be called like a puppy mill kind of situation. So with that, I'm open to, I guess, Nicole, did you have anything you wanted to add with all your hard work?
I do.
Yeah. Could we hear from her? Let's do that.
I mean,
Yeah.
might take a little long, you cut me off. Too.
No.
So, thank you for taking the time.
What's
to
your
hear-
last name for the record?
Oh, yes, Nicole Martinez.
Thank you.
Sorry. For taking the time to hear why I support prohibiting the sale of animals at pet stores. I know the initial reaction to retail bans can be unfavorable, with some people showing more concern for consumer rights. But even if someone is inclined to look at pets as goods for sale, which I'm not, but a focused retail ban does not stop people from bringing pets into their homes. People could still adopt or buy pets directly from breeders. So I just want to clarify that because sometimes there can be some confusion. Poor animal welfare standards in the pet industry have gone unchecked for entirely too long. Most animals sold at pet stores come from breeding mills. These mills are not like the small scale, responsible breeders you may know. Instead, they operate more like factories and show little regard for the animals they sell. Animals are often denied veterinary care, live in filthy, crowded conditions while exposed to extreme temperatures, and bred for traits that seriously compromise their health. When people buy from pet stores, they unknowingly encourage these harmful practices. Pet stores are excluded from the Animal Welfare Act and only have to pass an initial inspection to receive their license. After that, it's up to consumers to request inspections. Unfortunately, even if someone files a complaint, not much can be done. Believe me, I've tried. For example, there are no specific care guidelines for birds in Rhode Island, which means there are no meaningful laws for diet, enrichment, or enclosures. Birds are kept in terrible conditions at pet stores, and it's perfectly legal. For dogs, laws are stronger, but still deficient. They can be kept in small enclosures on metal grates without bedding or toys, and again, perfectly legal. So it comes back to regulation too. People say, oh, USDA license, it's fine. I just want to clarify something with that too. The USDA is tasked with inspecting far too many facilities for it to be effective. Since 2018, their workload has doubled while their budget has significantly decreased. Right now, there are 115 inspectors responsible for inspecting around 17,000 animal care facilities. Increasing the number of facilities subject to inspection does not improve animal welfare when the funding is not there to support quality inspections. I submitted several USDA reports to illustrate that point. Breeders cannot properly care for thousands of parakeets, but before undercover investigations exposed horrific conditions at several bird mills, citations had not been issued and these facilities were considered compliant. That's scary, right? I mean,
I specifically chose the reports from a puppy mill in Kansas because they have sold puppies to pet stores here in Rhode Island. Multiple violations in less than a year, and they still have their license. No one wants to spend thousands of dollars to then have to surrender or euthanize their pets. Pet stores selling puppies in Rhode Island offer financing through predatory lenders for people with bad credit. These pet owners are going into debt for puppies they cannot afford, unaware of medical issues that will cost thousands more. A pet store ban would not only help animals, but would also protect consumers from making uninformed or impulsive decisions. I do not feel pet stores will ever be a transparent source for pets. You cannot meet breeders or see the conditions in which animals were kept before arriving at pet stores. For all these reasons, I do not want to see pet stores in Richmond sell animals and add to the problem of overcrowded shelters. So I know, very long-winded, but just wanted.
No, that's perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have council questions for Nicole? Oh, sure.
I know.
Gonna go for
Good.
Council Reynolds?
No, go ahead, Councilman.
So, in Rhode Island, DEM regulates pet stores.
Correct.
Right? They have regulations.
They're woefully inadequate.
Well,
So they do have regulations, but people will call to complain and say, oh, this, for example, this bird doesn't have any toys, the diet is wrong, has one perch, or for example, one pet store has PVC pipe for a perch, which is actually not very good for their feet. Nothing can be done. There are no regulations regarding that. As long as the animal is not starving and in an enclosure, it's not something that the DEM can address, and they don't. And they are, you know, they're stretched thin too, like a lot of organizations. So they can't going out they do go out, but they don't issue a citation. Nothing changes.
Thank you.
Of course.
Is there a question?
Nicole, first, I mean, thank you. I appreciate your passion. I know we've talked a little bit about this. The unique situation, because I worked in the pet industry for 15 years.
Yes.
Since I was 16. I worked at South County Pet Center for Sue Brown, who worked for Dr. Bird, one of our avian vets in the area. And we were also located in the plaza with Whitford, worked with Dr. Wietzma. I understand the research, but some of the statements you've made about pet stores and the way they care for animals is not fair. And I'll just say that we treated our animals absolutely with the most care possible. When there was medical need, we spent a lot of money. We did not have puppies because my boss, Sue Brown, felt adamantly that puppies should be bought from AKC registered breeders, and we would defer people to those breeders. Any of the birds that we would have were captive bred from breeders we knew. They were not wild caught birds. On this list, fish are excluded. Why are fish excluded? Because they can't be rescued. But we did not buy any wild caught saltwater fish. It was part of our ethos. We were an ethical pet store, and we tried to do the right thing. And I think that's why when I shop at a pet store, I will not buy any product from a pet store that has puppies, because I don't believe that's the best place for them. I look at how they care for their animals. I ask questions to the staff. I just feel like it's giving pet store owners who do the right thing a bad rap sometimes. You know, we all know a lot of birds are put into rescue, right?
Yes.
But what we're leaving out is that a blue front Amazon lives from between 40 to 60 years. So oftentimes the owner ages out and has to place their bird into a home because it's bonded to them and it won't go to their relatives. I mean, that's, you know, grays, macaws, cockatoos, whatever. They're all going to outlive the people, most likely. We don't have any pet stores in Richmond that sell livestock. My concern with this too is if somebody has bunnies and wants to sell their bunnies from their farm, they cannot do this according to this because it says you can't do that in roadside or whatever. That would limit that. I put the onus on the consumer to make the right choice. You know, I don't personally believe that the legislation is going to stop that. I also have concerns, you know, pet stores, we have, I tried to make a note, in Washington County and Kent County today, we have, I think, a total of like 6 pet stores, right? You've got 2 Petcos, you've got a PetSmart, you've got OSA in Warwick, you've got Fishbowl, which has 2 locations now because they took over A's Aquatics.
People are very angry about that too.
Yeah, I know Adam personally, right? And there are differences in the way they treat their livestock. Let's just leave that as it is. And then you have the one mall. The thing is, ever since Amazon and Chewy, those pet stores are only making a profit to stay in business as a small business based on the livestock. and getting people to come in. So if they come to buy a hamster or a parakeet, and the regulations in Rhode Island are already restrictive. A parakeet in Rhode Island costs $60. In Massachusetts, it costs $15. Right? So it's a huge, huge, difficulty to run that business. As a person who has kept fish, has kept pets over the years, there's no longer a place for me to go in Rhode Island because the way the legislation is and because the lack. So I have to go to Massachusetts or Connecticut to get that. So all in all, I mean, I have that ultimate care for the well-being of the animals. I worked in an environment where we did care for the animals, where we did do the right thing. I think the consumer has to look at the place where they're buying their pet and make a decision.
That's the problem, is that they're not. They are going to Petco, they are going to PetSmart, they're going to Pet Supplies Plus. They're going to a lot of vendors that do not care about the animals they keep. And where they source them from is even worse. So you cannot, unfortunately, do a retail ban, and say, well, a smaller store that's doing the right thing will remain, operating in that way. It has to be a blanket ban. And they could still, no, they wouldn't, because Rumford Pet, they used to sell puppies.
I worked there as well.
Okay, they used to sell puppies
Yep.
and they shifted and they're thriving. They host adoption events. People still need to buy their merchandise. And I go to Rumford Pet. I go out of my way to enjoy it
Where do you think those dogs come from?
from shelters.
A truck shows up with 25 dogs just suddenly from Tennessee. They're not all.
Well, a lot of other states have very
They've
high
changed
kill
the business
rates.
model. Those mills are now going through that avenue in many ways.
Well, I mean, if we wait for a perfect solution, nothing
I
will
know,
change, right? So I do think that there's a lot that is left, there's a lot left to be desired. Birds are just, they're not regarded the same way. I volunteer with birds. I've been around them for a long time. I do see why, for example, Amazons are surrendered. Yes, sometimes guardians pass and there's no one to take care of them. A lot of times it's due to aggression or being destructive.
Yeah.
Birds do not
Cockatoos.
Cockatoos are particularly bad. Velcro birds, I have been bitten multiple times. Trust me.
Fingernail.
Right. So certain birds, especially larger ones, do not do well in captivity, and that does not change. It doesn't matter how well you care for them.
Yeah.
And I do very strongly feel that we haven't been selling pets here. I don't think we should. Now, livestock, there's a way to carve that out. We could say agricultural use, that there would be an exemption, and that would be fine in my thinking. But I just don't want to see another pet store that says they source from independent breeders and that they do the right thing, but then when you look at their CVIs or the intake or the USDA breeders are using, they're puppy mills or bird mills. So that's my concern.
I see your point. When that was one of the challenges of working at Rumford, was because of the puppies, and I did not agree with that approach, but I didn't own the store, right?
Right.
It was but the store that I had the experience with working at, we did not, and I think, I understand, but I think there's it's gonna cut down and destroy an industry which is already on life support because of Amazon and big business. And when you take away that livestock piece for the responsible owners, it's going to kill it.
I mean,
And we won't
selling
have
30
that
to
noise.
50 parakeets a year, for example, though, is not going to keep a business afloat. I've had that discussion with Jungle Junction up in Cumberland.
Yeah.
She's not making money from selling birds. She's making money from grooming and from boarding and selling merchandise.
Yeah, we didn't make money on the hamster, but when you came and bought the hamster, you bought the fish tank, you bought the water bottle, you bought the bedding, the food, and you would come back. So it was the residuals. That's out of the business model. But
Right, I see your point.
Yeah.
But
just wanted to.
I appreciate the questions and everything and your background. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
My life careers are on trial tonight, as I've said.
No.
Just wait, they are.
I know. Thank you so much. I appreciate the
Yeah, I'm
opportunity.
sorry
Yeah.
if there are. I'm sorry.
No, are there other questions or concerns? Is this?
I think Jim's.
Mhm.
Yeah, we currently have a use code for dog boarding and breeding kennel. And I guess my concern would be, depending on if we take any action on this, how we write the words specifically to legislate that there's no commercial pet sales, but it doesn't impede the ability of people to raise livestock and sell. Because plenty of people breed different types of pets in Richmond and sell those pets. I myself have always gotten my animals, dogs or rats or bunnies, from breeders. Never got them from a commercial store. Some of what I heard and what I read through seems like this might be more intended for state legislation, not necessarily for something that Richmond should do, other than, like, as you stated, we don't have a use code for commercial pet sales. So it is prohibited currently.
Yeah.
So I think as Richmond's concerned, we don't have to take any action because we don't permit it as it is.
Yeah.
And if someone wanted to sell animals commercially, they would need to come to the council and get a new use code.
So then somebody wouldn't be able to file for a license to open up a pet store here that sells animals, is what you're, just to clarify?
Yeah, part of
So-
our table of uses, before you get to the table of uses, it does say that anything that's not like expressly allowed within this use code is prohibited.
Okay.
So you can't just, if you want to do something that's not there, you got to make a use code for it, basically. It's gonna come up again with another item down the line, so I'll say it now. We do actually have a use code that was created and then just prohibited across the board, and that's adult entertainment. So many years back at this point, it was decided that we didn't want that in town. We created a use code for adult entertainment. Not we, it wasn't any of us on council. And it was prohibited across the board. So it's not uncommon for, I mean, it is uncommon. It's done once, I think, that I've known of. I would consider it a belt and suspenders kind of approach if you really don't want it that strongly. But yeah, I would have the same concerns about making sure that we don't, and I talked to you about this offline, that we don't have issues with livestock or bunnies and things like that, that would be considered part of the agriculture around here. So maybe the best step, to Councilman's point, is more of a state level concern for 2020.
Yeah. Just going through our use code table and looking even at like the very basic general like retail services, we have it defined explicitly in what that means. So someone couldn't essentially come in and say, okay, well, this is considered a retailer and I can do what I want, but that's not how we have it defined in the use code table. So I think your request in terms of restricting commercial pet sales in Richmond, I think we already have that. I don't think we have to take any action right now. And if and when someone decides that they want to open up a commercial entity that sells any type of pets, then they would have to come. They wouldn't just have to come to the council. They have to go to the planning board first, then come to the council. So there would be multiple instances in order to provide input in how you would actually regulate that type of entity. Like, I think we got you covered.
I hope so. I mean, the people in North Kingstown thought, oh, we're not gonna have any stores selling puppies, and then a store opened up that didn't have the proper license even so, but still opened up and started selling puppies. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's good to know though, as long as that doesn't deviate and.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Nicole, can I ask you one quick question? What's the dead animals sold and displayed as breeder animals mean? That was a strange statement. What does
Which
that
one?
mean?
I'm
It
sorry.
said prohibition of dead animals sold or displayed as breeder animals. It's in the.
Oh, that one, I'm not really sure with that
I
either. I don't think we have to copy everything. I know there are certain, I mean, I know, I did see that where it's, but I'd have to do more research.
Okay,
I don't know. I thought that was strange too,
All right.
in all fairness.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
I have one follow-up
Yeah.
question. So you mentioned licensing. So in business licensing, if pet sales are regulated by the state, and I'm going to ask our clerk and our admin a question, does that, if we don't have a specific license for pet sales in Richmond, does someone have to come to the town to ask to sell pets and get a license? Or does it just give us the ability to regulate and put a license in place? How would that work?
I think that they would still have to go through general business because I'm looking at retail in 16
Yeah.
and I'm not seeing it expressly prohibited.
Well,
So there could be that
well,
where they go through the general business.
well, the reason I'm saying retail in 738 is that it explicitly has photography. It doesn't say include but not limited to. It says includes photography, travel agencies, private investigators, security, locksmiths, florists, interior designers, printers, and copiers. It does not say, if it said includes but not limited to, I'd say, okay, someone could, an attorney could make a case that that includes other types of retail services. But to me, it's That's pretty clear. And unless it's explicit in 738.
So that's an exhaustive list of types of retail businesses.
If, when I asked, so.
Hardware on that.
No, but you know what's interesting? I asked this to
Right.
Counselor Ellsworth when she was here, and she said, if it's not here, you don't have to permit it.
Well, there's landscapes. There's other.
So
Well,
when you,
no, I'm very.
Well, this is why sometimes the belt and suspenders is a positive thing.
right, because when you say you can permit it, so then it's still an option. So it's not explicitly stated that a pet store cannot open that sells animals. So maybe it would be better to simply prohibit it to begin with, so there's no confusion.
If
And
I-
work it out that,
If I was on the planning board, I would look at this and say it is not permitted. You need to amend the zoning ordinance to get a permit.
And as an aquarium hobbyist, I would love to see a pet store open that sold fish in Richmond because, but how do you don't draw a line? I mean, if you're gonna sell
Well-
fish, it's not up to me to dictate what that business, I mean, you could restrict puppy and cat sales and defer. I mean, I'd be fine with that.
what about
agree.
birds?
What about what?
What about birds as well? Because we get a lot of surrenders for birds. That would really help because there are not many shelters that are equipped with taking care of birds. What about birds, dogs, and cats? And nothing else then? At the very least, I would like to see those three.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay,
I
that's
honestly don't
fair.
know.
I know, I just,
I mean, I think I'm a little bit biased as a, you know, I don't know, if you guys ever had pets? You do, I know you do, but.
I
um,
adopted.
oh, I appreciate that.
I mean, yeah, my view is that, you know, as a child who is old enough to be responsible for taking care of another living being, when a child takes care of a parakeet, for example, that develops life skills to care for that animal to make sure.
Money for adoption. I mean, it would, yeah, it wouldn't be,
Well, you volunteer at Pararescue, right?
Yeah.
It used to be down,
it's, yeah, Wood Alton.
yeah, down there.
Woodville, yeah.
And I've gone to the annual celebration for that. It's a wonderful facility.
It
You
is.
guys do great work, certainly. It's unique to have that functionality to be able to see those birds find another home. But yeah, I still think there's yeah, I'd be hesitant to restrict someone's rights to own a bird.
But we're not restricting their rights because they can still buy from breeders or go to shelters to adopt. So however, I don't see how we're restricting. I do get that argument a lot and I understand
To
it,
be able to sell it in your own town, but.
but you can, a breeder could.
Yeah, okay.
A breeder could sell. This is just so that they're not sold at pet stores. I mean, if you go into a pet store, most of the enclosures are pretty awful.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
have to
we're
agree with
We're
that.
certainly splitting.
Yeah.
There are cases on both sides. Yeah, we're splitting
Yes.
hairs. I don't mean to get into a different, I see your point. If the
Yes.
pet store said you're only gonna sell birds that are raised by breeders, I'm fine with that. Local
That,
breeders, local
say-
breeders. The pet store is only gonna sell birds raised by local breeders. That's fine.
but no, they have to go to the breeder. It wouldn't be that, because you can't, and it's very hard to police, for example. I mean, we can discuss this later.
Yeah,
I'm taking up too much
yeah.
time, but I appreciate that and I will
Thank
follow up with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's chat.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Probably need more state level enforcement is what I'm learning as well. So
Yes.
that we can work on
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it seems like there's not an appetite to move this forward, which is okay. We can do a little research, bring it back if anybody feels the need. And I'll move on to the next item,
We have a second for a break, like a bathroom break or anything?
if anybody needs
Been
one.
a little bit.
Do you want to? Would you
Yeah, I would
motion
love
for a
to.
5-minute break?
Yes, motion to 5-minute break.
All right,
Second.
second, roll call vote,
Okay.
Counselor Mandick,
Yes.
O'Shannnon.
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
and Wilcox, yes.
Yeah, thank you. What should we talk about next?
Chief's here.
Oh, hey, chief.
Yes, I was thinking I'd get through the items and then go
Oh,
back to chief.
okay.
No, but it will be quick, I hope. Are we live again? Okay, can we have a motion to reconvene?
So moved.
Second,
Before our vote, Counselor Madnick,
Yes.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
yes.
and Wilcox, yes. Awesome. So next item is 4B, a request for myself. This is exploring options on restrictions on flock cameras. First of all, Richmond does not have any in town. We don't have a contract that we can cancel. They're not here. But with the concerns around the community, that's another one where, and I've made a statement about this about a month and a half ago, where we need consistent statewide standards for the use of our data. That's what we really need. Although we don't have them in Richmond, pretty frequently I drive by at least two. So it's not about each town, I think, restricting them. It needs to be a state level rule where our data is controlled. However, right now I can only control what Richmond does. So I had called our town administrator and had asked what options we could have for restricting flock cameras, whether it be within our police and safety policy or if it's, again, a zoning ordinance. So I wanted to see if there's an appetite from council to seek some kind of restriction on flock cameras in either of those manners and defer it to our town solicitor for research and bring it back to us. So with that, I'll open it up to council thoughts, questions, concerns. Sure, go ahead, Mark.
I can't see if
Oh,
someone's.
well, sorry, I can see if hands are raised and I'll let them
Yeah,
know.
Mark, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mark.
So I have a question, Chief. We received information claiming that the state police have deployed a camera in Richmond. Do you know whether that's accurate or not?
That is not accurate. They haven't yet deployed it or installed it. And it will not be installed or activated with this 60-day freeze the governor's put into place, pausing the program to study the very things I think that the town council president is discussing.
Okay.
So I think it'd be helpful at some point, if you were going to make a decision, is to know what police departments have in the way of control over that data. I haven't used it. I'm aware of, the benefits of it to law enforcement. 40 square mile town with an interstate highway going through it, and crimes being committed by outside residents or residents from other states in our community. I get the benefit to it, but I also understand the concerns that have been brought to light most recently. I think it would be beneficial to find out what the state police report back to the governor before you make a decision on what we don't truly fully understand. There's a lot of information being offered. How much of it is accurate, I don't know. I know about the New Bedford case. That's an allegation. I don't know if it's been substantiated. I do know firsthand from other police departments that this has helped them solve violent crimes. So again, it's one of those balancing acts as to the need to do and use certain technology balanced against the privacy interests of the public in a public place, which is the highway or the state roads. That's all. I'm aware that they have not yet installed it and that no installation will occur over the next 60 days.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely can be a useful tool, particularly in a live, in the kind of the live use. In other words, we've got a vehicle that's fleeing from Richmond, and then you want to see where it pops in real time. I think it's very useful in that circumstance. The concern, and this is what the state's got to figure out, and I think it's for them to figure out before the whole program should expand, because we need guidelines. We should have guidelines before we have this program. Unfortunately, the cameras have beat the guidelines, and that's a lot of the cause of concern. And I think the biggest cause is the fact is how long is this data being retained? And unfortunately, there are people that don't always follow the guidelines in every organization. And we need to protect against that. So I think I agree we should wait. Let's see what happens at the state level. I think that's where the regulations need to be put into place. And, obviously this town cannot enter into a contract with any company without the town council approval. So, you know, that's just my quick thoughts on it.
Sure, Councilor Palmigano.
Yeah, I think, understanding the benefit and the challenges to law enforcement, certainly we have expressed hundreds of times how supportive we are of the work that our officers are doing here in the state police. But I think if you go back to the Blackstone principle, that 10 guilty men go free before one innocent man suffer. I say that because, this is to many people, it's a continuous warrantless monitoring that is not necessarily what we're accustomed to in a democratic society. So I've heard from a lot of constituents about concerns about this. I had made a note too, just 2 days ago, Hood County, Texas shut down all their flock cameras over privacy and mass surveillance concerns, and their constable just said take these things out of the town. And the Flock CEO Garrett Langley just acknowledged last week the possibility of misuse in CVS. So there's a lot of, as you've said, a lot of concern over this. I think this is the poison pill nobody's touching right now. I think, we're a rural community. Yes, we have access from 95. We've had issues with people coming in from Connecticut, New York. And I think we're mitigating that very well today. Could we do more? Yes, but that's, as you said, that balance between balancing the rights of the citizens and the ability to maintain law and order. So I would certainly not be in favor of that technology being used here. And it seems very invasive to me. That's just my view on it.
Yeah. For sure.
There's some huge thing flying around this room.
It's a fly. Go ahead.
It is not a flock camera.
Fly.
Yeah, Chief, if I remember correctly, we do have some kind of CCTV and security systems, and I believe we've got the servers in the basement of the police department.
Yeah.
Is that an accurate statement?
Standalone. And the only people have access to it. It covers the inside of the station, the outside of the station, street view, all that.
Right, yeah, so there's no outside access. We control the data. Okay. Yeah, I share the same concerns with other counselors with, continuous surveillance of people that are not acting with any criminality and not knowing how that data is going to be used and who has access to it. So I think that we do need to wait for some specific guidelines. I was disappointed to find out that we did. I really didn't understand how prolific these were in our area. And I went and looked at one of the maps, and Richmond is a nice dead zone where there isn't any. And then you look outside Richmond and there's quite a few. Now, that's not to say that every day when you go to someone's house or whatnot, you're on a Ring camera or Nest camera or security surveillance at a business, but this seems to be quite a bit beyond that expectation.
It's also very different when the government already has all this data on you, right? So like Ring has this data, that is a choice that the homeowner's making of putting that camera in their home. It's a choice that I'm making to walk up and ring that Ring doorbell. I can choose to leave my phone at home. I know I know probably 4 people who are choosing to stay away from social media and cell phones. But if you want to subpoena that, like that's a process. That's not just, hey, I want your, like if the government wants that, they can't just go get it. So I think that's the concern, is just having a way around a warrant, I guess, is another concern that's out there for some, myself included. And yeah, I'm glad that the pause is there. I've got that email from the governor's office, the press release, midday today. So this is kind of already on the agenda. I think that if that pause had not happened, then I would be referring to our town solicitor to do this research, but I guess we'll free up his schedule and wait and see what happens and go from there. But does anybody disagree with that? All right, perfect. Oh, sure, go ahead, Counselor.
So there won't be any deployment of this technology in Richmond until it's authorized or prevented by the council, or could it happen without? If the state police decided to put flock cameras, there's nothing we can do about that in Richmond. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, but that was kind of my referral to the town solicitor to double check and make sure, unless Chief knows.
I believe if you have a body wanted to communicate to them your reservations or that you wish not to have it put there, they'll entertain that. I don't know what the response will be and whether that'll influence whether they install or not, whatever happens after this 60-day pause. I know that I have not brought this to you as a potential purchase because we can't afford to do that. I need cruisers and other equipment that are just higher priorities than
Mhm.
it's expensive to put the cameras in, and then there's a subscription cost annually. Even if you don't have a camera, if I wanted to access the network of information, there's a cost to that as well. So we're not going to be putting in for these because we just can't afford to do that. But as far as the state police use it, I recognize the value of the technology and I understand the concerns. I'm seeing and hearing the same things that everybody else is. So I think it's justified that they look at it and then look at the controls in place so that it's used properly and it protects against those invasions people are concerned about. But I think if you have any instinct in the next 60 days to communicate concerns you have as a body to the state police, they'll entertain it.
Yeah,
That's
so-
a good step.
And if that's something that we have to wait for more guidance from what the governor's decision is going to be, as we see that, I would like to possibly have it on a future agenda to discuss writing a memo to the state police, to have a discussion around not using this technology or what the council decides, but from my perspective, not using that technology here and having a discussion with them before suddenly we find ourselves with this technology in the town.
Right. I think that's a good idea. Sure, go ahead. State your name when you get to the podium, please.
Douglas Delorier, town of Richmond. I'm broadly in favor of not allowing for these cameras. I echo the concerns that Councilor Palmigano and Councilor Magnick had. Specifically, it would probably be less of a problem if the data we knew would stay in Richmond, but it's not going to stay in Richmond. It's a third-party company that has access to this data, that shares it with nearly unlimited access to state, federal, and many other agencies. So with that said, anything we can do to prevent these, trying to communicate to that state, I mean, the 60-day pause is for the state to figure things out. I would like to communicate to the state that the residents of Richmond, at least myself, would not like to see these cameras pop up.
Yeah.
In this time, yes.
Yeah, and thank you for being a proponent of data sovereignty in a data center in Richmond for that very fact. Thanks, Denny.
All right, well, we'll talk about that next.
Yeah, I think it will be on the next agenda then. I'd like to put that on the agenda and then you guys can help decide whether we move forward with that.
Yeah, I think we should have two requests. One would be a resolution or a letter to the state police telling them we would not like them in Richmond and ask for their cooperation and response. I don't want a letter that just goes to them and we never hear from them again. I would like some kind of response that says, sure, we're willing to work with you on that, or no, we're not. But then also, to Mr. Delorier's point, we should also do a resolution to the state legislators and our governor saying Richmond does not want this, because a lot of the communities are expressing that by canceling their contracts. We don't have that opportunity to cancel a contract and express that. So this could be our way of sharing that we're against it.
Yeah.
If we are, go ahead, Councilor Reynolds.
I think we have to see how the state is going to permit the use. And if state law we think is not protective enough, then we can take the next step. If we are satisfied that whatever state law, which obviously won't be enacted until next year, assuming it happens, is satisfactory, then we don't have to do anything. We could take a position on the legislation when it's introduced, but I think we should take it one step at a time.
$90 days is not next session though, so something's gonna have,
Well-
my concern would be like 90 days, that pause is over and boom, we're exposed again.
Well, no,
To at least think
I agree with sending a
Okay,
resolution telling the state police we don't want it. I agree with that because there are no guidelines right now, so we don't want it now.
right,
But I think as far as saying we.
the resolution's a governor.
Yeah, that
Okay,
we want to, ban them entirely. We don't know what the state's going to come up with. So if the state comes up with what we think is a satisfactory program, which basically says you can keep the data for 30 seconds, or 3 minutes or what, like I said, then, we can consider that. But I think we need to wait and see what they do before we decide. And like I said, and the chief's already said, we can't afford it in the first place. And if he did want it, he'd have to bring it to whatever council is here for a contract. So it's not something that can happen on its own. So,
Okay,
Let's take the state police.
stick with the letter. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Just to a point that was made a couple meetings ago as well, these resolutions, we're gonna have a whole new group of people up there, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
So Kendra, do you have what you need from us for the next agenda, or do you need that in writing from us?
a motion.
A motion?
Yeah, do a motion.
So motion for the next meeting or to ask her to craft?
Motion to put it on the next meeting.
Yeah, motion to put on the next agenda, a discussion and consideration of crafting a letter to the state police regarding regarding the conversation around flock cameras and a desire from Richmond to not have them deployed without
Right, but do
further discussion.
we want a draft letter to review at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's fine.
good. All right, so I'll second that.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to amend that motion to not just flock cameras, but I want it to be inclusive of all
Mhm.
ALPR's automatic license plate readers, inclusive of the company flock, but other entities that also act like
That's a
flock.
good point. Not restricted to the brand.
Yes, thank you. I had that in my notes.
right.
Because a lot of companies or a lot of areas are just replacing it with a different brand.
Yep.
And that's how they get you.
The big one in the news right now, but
Right.
there are others, plenty of others.
Perfect.
Okay.
So that was a motion to amend the main motion. So we'll go for a vote on the motion to amend. Counselor Mandic,
Yes.
Palmigano,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
and Wilcox, yes. Now we'll do a motion on that main motion.
Who seconded?
I did.
Dan's motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Back to our main motion. Any further discussion? All right, we'll go for a vote. Counselor Mandic,
Yes.
Palmigano.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. Thank you so much for that discussion. Finally, again, with concerns regarding development and looking for a belts and suspenders approach to our ordinances, I wanted to put up a discussion on a restriction on data centers across the board in Richmond. Our water supply simply, I don't think could handle it. And wanted to open that up to council discussion as far as just creating a use code that would, like other use codes we have, ban it across the board, even though we have, as we discussed earlier, that opportunity to not allow it by right if it's not listed there. Sure, go ahead, Counselor.
I'm gonna make it simple and then I'm gonna let Jim take it away. I think it is worthwhile to, and just be very clear, let me back up. Data center and the way that a data center is defined is currently prohibited outright in our use code table because there's nothing even close in our use code table that represents a data center. With that said, it may be in our best interest to direct the planning board to look at creating a data center use code and determine if that is a fit for a comprehensive community plan. And if it is or it is not, and whatever details they come up with, then providing that to the council so that we can have a public hearing and discussion on that. I think that is likely the best way to handle it.
Yeah.
And that's all I have to say about it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Going on-
So to continue the theme of my life and work, I've worked for a data center infrastructure company for over 25 years. I'm intimately familiar with data centers, power, cooling, and air. I'm not speaking on behalf of the company I work for, but just sharing my experience. I don't believe that Richmond is the right place for a data center. The ambient noise alone from a data center is not conducive to our rural character. The energy draw does have a tendency, when you have a large consumer of energy, it's supply and demand, and it can drive up costs for the residents as well. And then there are cases of water contamination. Most data centers today working towards liquid cooling is using a glycol mix, but there have been instances where there have been discharge into the water aquifer, and it's problematic, right? But I also want to caution and say, is the conversation around the problem with AI or is it data centers? Because AI is what's driving this exponential build on data center deployment. I also think that if the planning board is going to cover this, they should be thinking about restricting footprint and kilowatt size of a data center, because that is what would be coming here. If someone was to build a data center here, you're looking at 300 to 500, even 1 million square feet of data center space to make it viable here. It would also be involved with on-site power generation, not utilizing the kilowatt per hour price we pay in Rhode Island. They'd be crazy to do so. But the reason it's important to specify the kilowatt and perhaps the footprint is the reality is upstairs we have a rack, we have some cooling, and we have power. That is considered a small data center in this building. So you want to make sure you don't cut your nose off to spite your face. So just be careful about that. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. And there's concerns just around battery, from like solars that you could have at your solar arrays that you could have at your home. Same concern with the size of the data center. But yeah, I agree. That's the best path forward and kind of the goal that I would like to have. Any other council concerns? Yeah, sure.
I don't think it makes sense to create a use code and then prohibit it in every zone, because then it's there in the table. And someone can come in and say, wait, we wanna amend the ordinance to allow it in this zone or that zone. Why add it because it's on the table? I guess it's a permitted use, but then we put X's in every box. To me, that's country. It's nonsensical. I mean, you're gonna say we're gonna put it in the use code and then say you can't do it anywhere. It's not permitted. As Councilor Madnick said, it's not listed. It's not permitted. I would just say it's a moot question. You're gonna be asking the planning board with all the other things they have on their plate to dive into this, which is basically fool's errand. I mean, they're gonna, if I were them, I said, why are they asking us to do this? So I think we don't have an issue. No sense spending any more valuable volunteer time.
I'd be shocked if the data center was going to come here. I just want to make sure, like to your points, if there's no way it can sneak in the back route, right? Because I'd be shocked if one was being over here.
Yeah, I mean, I had brought up the same concern. Like, why would we ban it if it's already essentially not allowed because there's no use code? But there was a concern that appeals could take place and court hearing could take place where it could overcome our ordinances. So that's why I brought it to the table today. But I also like the way you phrase that. If it's on the table, it'll be much easier to just flip a use code for somebody than it would be for them to build this up from scratch, right? It would be a lot easier for the applicant to just have the right people in the right places and flip it. So it may not, seeing it from that perspective, I think you're right. But I was looking at it for more of a belts and suspenders approach because again, the council, prior to us have done that with adult entertainment. There's a use code for it, and it's just nope.
It's actually permitted in industrial zone.
Oh, it is an industrial.
Mhm.
Well, then I was wrong. Thank you for correcting me on that.
I mean, the industrial zones in Richmond are extremely limited, so.
Yeah. All right, so no action on this one either? Because it's already prohibited.
Prohibited is prohibited.
Yeah. All right, let's,
Gonna happen.
then we will go on to new business 5, request of Wood River Health Services to become Richmond's project for rural community health network development grant. Is Allison online? Or any information she wants to share with us? I know. Okay. You want to speak more? Okay.
So, state funding has come out. It again is a very quick turnaround, and this portion of the funding from OHHS is to identify healthcare needs and pitfalls of communities. So that's this first round of funding. When this came out, we had a lot of different entities approaching every city in town. We're not the only ones saying they'd represent us through the grant funding process. But this first phase, as I understand it, because I met with the league, set up an informational meeting yesterday, is that this would be an entity that would identify the needs so that when the next funding round comes through, that those funds would be allocated appropriately. We do not, our human service position is going to expire in December. It is not to meet a need of services currently of staff. So we don't really have anyone, obviously, in the town that could provide those type of surveys or data collection. Wood River approached us as well as some surrounding communities, and I received a couple different inquiries, and I said to please have their proposed application for your consideration, because I felt that council should make that determination. And Wood River has submitted on that behalf. There is some of these grant funded projects that are really great, tight turnaround, but there is literally no nitty gritty information on it. And that's probably the most frustrating part, because maybe we could take advantage of this solely, but right now at this point, I don't think we do. Wood River already has the capability to do these things. And so Allison and I did meet, and we would work towards identifying exactly once some more criteria comes out, and Richmond certainly still has a seat at the table, but that they would be our lead partner on this grant funding project to identify need, so that when the next round of funding comes through, that we are appropriated.
We have an action on this one.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of Wood River Health Services to become Richmond's, I guess, partner on the project for the Rural Community Health Network Development Grant.
All right, second it. Any council questions or discussion?
Yeah, I got no problems. One of the big needs in our community is primary and urgent care. We don't have anything, and if this is going to maybe facilitate that, and we have a partner that's willing to work with us, I'm okay with that. Wood River is the closest thing that we have, other than South County, so I support this.
Awesome. We will go for our roll call vote. Counselor Madnick?
Yes.
O'Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. New business 6, a request from Raymond Way, Vice President of Advantage Glass, for a waiver of building permit fees. Is he present or online? All right. Yeah, I guess I'll do we can do that, because I had a question, which was just kind of why.
Yeah, motion filed. Yeah.
Is that a motion to file? Yep, we got our second.
Yeah.
Any council discussion? All right, we'll go for a roll call vote. Counselor Madnick?
Yes.
O'Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
And Wilcox, yes. Before we go to our communications chief, we did hold your reports till the end for you. Thank you for going to I know you're in Charahoe.
I was at
Thanks
the
for
Sparrow
working
School
with that.
Committee meeting. Thank you very much for allowing me to present at a later time. I just had two issues I wanted to share. This is strange because I'm used to turning to the audience, but sorry, folks.
Help it out.
It's still the microphone.
This is better though. It's centered. I understand I'm under the microphone now. So July 27th, I just wanted to share great police work in real time when a crime's reported. A lot of times people delay reporting for various reasons. Sexual assault, it's understandable. Even with property crime, sometimes they don't realize it's been taken until days later. This particular event on July 27th, it was probably around 5 o'clock in the evening. The brother of a property owner off of Switch Road in Richmond sees his sister's motorcycle being walked away or taken away from her property or the area of her property. He recognizes the bike, calls his sister. They tried to piece it together. It was somebody ventured onto their property, stole the motorcycle. She sees it's missing. She calls. There's probably a 5 to 10 minute delay. A lot can happen in 5 to 10 minutes. If this particular bike did not run at the time, I had a flat tire, I believe. And our officers, Sergeant Billiterio, Officer Paul Marshall, responded to the area, canvass immediately, and start to reach out to neighboring departments because we're so close to the border with Hopkinton there. They alert Hopkinton. Officer Sam Kershaw comes in to assist. They go to an area, they start to kind of patrol and look for motorcycles that may have been out, and they find a couple of bikes that are similar to the ones that were described as being used by the culprits that were younger in age, white males, 17 to say 21 years old. They approach that person. He's reluctant and lies about his involvement. The bikes, they were able to see that the exhausts were still hot from having been recently operated. They end up developing information with this individual who was involved. They identify a pickup truck that may have been used where they put the motorcycle in the bed of the pickup truck, covered it with a tarp. Again, this is all interviews at the scene, reaching out to resources like Hopkinton, working together. You don't know what you have until you have concluded that you've got the bike back or that you have a person who is clearly involved in the theft. They ended up putting out a bolo for the truck that was involved with a possible license plate. And South Kingston located 2 suspects with that truck in their town. It led to the successful recovery of the motorcycle. They initially denied involvement, blamed somebody else, but ultimately agreed to bring the bike back. The bike was at the Richmond Police Station, I think, by that night. Ironically, despite all the legwork, this was a couple of hours worth of investigation. The owner of the motorcycle did not wish to press charges. She was elated and grateful to the police department for finding the motorcycle, but because it was recovered and it was in the same condition, she declined to prosecute. But I recognize that, you know, you can approach a crime, take a note, take a report, and just drive away. Maybe that's the concern some members of the public have. These officers completely exhausted themselves on trying to recover this bike for the property owner, which I think is a credit to them. And they did a great job employing old-fashioned police work, talking to people and being observant and aware. So that's Bill Letterio and Officer Marshall. The other thing I wanted to make you aware of, without getting into particulars, because it's an active investigation, we get a lot of scams. Raise your hand if you have been solicited by somebody outside of the state about a personal loan a couple of times a day. You can't avoid them, they're everywhere. This particular senior in our community was solicited by email that was somebody fished information off the internet and assumed the identity of a council member to dupe this person to believe that they were seeking their help and assistance to buy gift cards for a secret kind of appreciation gift for members of the staff in the town and other things. It's very compelling to think that this was going to happen. And I'm offering you as an example, this actually happened, but people will fish information off the internet and then use that to try to trick innocent members of the public to part with funds, and it usually involves gift cards. This one was very crafty and unfortunate. They also said in this email, anytime they said, you can't call me right now, I'm busy, that's a red flag. I understand why this particular person, it was a very convincing email, but it eliminated the opportunity for the victim to authenticate the email, which is what I recommend people do. Anytime people ask you to buy anything for anyone other than yourself, and that you have to part with funds and give them to them, it's just best to take a pause, wait till you can call that person or verify it through a text message or some other means. In this particular instance, the senior ended up going along with the request and bought gift cards and is out approximately $2,600. And and it was going to be reimbursement offered once it was completed, but it was never completed. In order for us to give you reimbursement, we just need 5 more cards, that kind of thing. It's heartbreaking. It happens so often internationally, certainly nationally and locally too. I would encourage people, even if somebody claims to be someone that you think you know, really examine the email and verify it with them independently, offline. Hear a voice that you recognize. And if you don't know who they are, call the police department. We'll find out if we can. That's all I have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we got 1 minute. Communication.
Motion to file.
Second.
Roll call vote, Mandick.
Yes.
O'Shannell.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Wilcox.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion second.
Mandick.
Yes.
O'Shannell.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Wilcox, yes.